Welcome to the race.
And the lights are out. Great start then.
The Moto2 champion steps into the team that's dominating the championship.
I'm Scott Mitchell from the race. We're here at Barcelona.
Sebastian Vettel is fighting for his career.
There has to be a title assault, and anything less will be a failure.
Oh, and a spin!
You lost the GoPro.
Hello and welcome to the race. This is Super Formula and the third round of the very delayed 2020 championship, coming live from Sportsland Sugo, one of my favourite tracks in the whole of Japan and one of the most exciting in the entire country. I'm joined as ever by Leo Gorman. Leigh, good morning, good afternoon and good evening.
Good morning, Sam. I'm really very much looking forward to this. As we know, Sportsland Sugo, easily one of the fastest tracks on the international calendar, not just the Japanese calendar, and it almost always presents a brilliant show here.
It's going to be a great race to see. I mean, it's a little bit it's been a slightly odd lead into it. We had quite a few different drivers turning up, and you've been through the different driver lineups, haven't you, Leigh? So because I've lost track of this a little bit with the pandemic, because there's drivers who swapped in, there's drivers who swapped out, and I can't remember which one's which.
Yeah, we've had another bit of a change since the last round at Okayama, although it's very much back. It's getting closer to what the original driver lineup for the season was. So Sergio Sette Camara is finally making his Super Formula debut for the season, having missed the first couple of rounds. And actually, a little bit of interesting news from him from this weekend. Some of the drivers who missed the previous round at Okayama because they were at Le Mans, they're back. Kenta Yamashita, Kamui Kobayashi, and Kazuki Nakajima have returned. Tatiana Calderon, however, who was racing at Le Mans, she still is not returned. She was actually racing the European Le Mans Championship recently. So Kudai Sakakoshi gets another seat in Draco Racing, and Charles Malaysi still actually hasn't taken his seat yet in Super Formula. As we see the qualifying highlights from earlier on today, just a few hours ago, it's Tomoki Najiri coming out of the very, very fast right-hander that ends the lap, Sam. And Sam, you can tell us more about this lap, because it really is a thrilling piece of racetrack.
It absolutely is, and the onboard cameras that we can see, I mean, we'll put some of those great onboard footage up after the race. It's just brilliant, that final sequence. But everyone says this is like the Spa-Francorchamps of Japan, and I think it's not far wrong. It's a proper old racetrack. I mean, have a look how close those barriers are to the side of the track, as that's the Q1 session taking place there. The qualifying result, though, has thrown up a bit of surprise. Ryo Hirakawa has dominated qualifying every single, both of the races we've had so far this season, but that's not how it played out, was it?
No, indeed. It was Hirakawa who was still did incredibly well in qualifying. He's going to be lining up on the front row of the grid, but it was Super Formula debutant Sergio Sette Camara for the BMAX by Motorsport team taking pole first time out in his Honda-powered car. A real surprise there. What we also saw there was from the brief moments in Q1A was Nick Cassidy qualifying fourth on the grid. We'll have a bit with him in a short while. This is returning Kenta Yamashita there. But of course, Nick Cassidy getting through the initial qualifying stages, and he was able to place his Team Tom's car well up on the grid. He'll be starting fourth on the grid, by far the highest qualifying position that he's had in a while. As we see Hirakawa coming across the line. Sorry, that was Toshiki Oyu, the Oh, it was Hirakawa. It was right first time around. Same colour cars, but there you go. Hirakawa crossing the line. And again, another great job. That's 2 more points for Hirakawa in qualifying, as you get bonus points for the qualifying session. And as we see the returning Kenta Yamashita coming across the line to get through in Q1B. There was a crash, however, for Toshuki Oyu. Now, he had qualified initially in 15th, but for bringing out the red flag, causing an incident, I think his time was disallowed, so he will be starting last. So that was an unfortunate situation for Toshiki Oyu. Not really the position you want to be starting from in any race, but it's incredibly difficult to make it up through the order in Super Formula. And, starting last, he's going to be using strategy to the best of his ability to try and make his way up through the positions, Sam.
Well, he's not having the best season. You can see him looking really disappointed with himself there. And after the first lap, we'll see it coming up. We'll see what happened at the first corner of the first proper lap of the last race. And Oyu is not the flavour of the month with some of the other drivers in the pit lane. And once again, there seems to be a little bit, and this man right here, Sasha Fenestraz, just pulling out of the pit lane, is one of the guys who was a little bit upset with Oyu. And yeah, another poor performance. But here we see Yuhi Sakaguchi going a little bit wide through the gravel on one of... he was lucky not to put it in the wall. Now, we are hearing live from the track at Sugo that Yuhi Sakaguchi has also had a moment in warm-up, and it delayed the warm-up session. So we're likely to see a slightly delayed start to the race this afternoon and this evening. And I think it is down to Sakaguchi. Now, we're still trying to work out exactly what happened, but looking from the warm-up times, we may also have problems for the Kondo Racing driver Sasha Fenestraz, who had in fact an appalling run in the warm-up session, over a minute off the pace on a lap that is only 1 minute and 8 seconds long. So that doesn't sound quite right either.
No, I think sounding like a little bit of an issue there for Kenta Yamashita, as we see the qualifying highlights now going into Q3. This is, of course, number 16 Tomoki Nojiri coming across the line. This is Hirakawa on his qualifying lap. Now, as I said, it's bonus points for qualifying, so Hirakawa would have notched up 2 additional points for qualifying second on the grid. And Hirakawa, he finished 4th last time out after starting on pole, extended his championship lead to 14 points, so still very much a top season for the 26-year-old. As you see, the checkered flag coming in for Q3. Sergio Sette Camara, the Red Bull racing driver, the Red Bull simulator and test and development driver for the main team, grabbing his first pole. 3 points for the Brazilian, and having missed the first 2 rounds of the season, he has hit the championship with a bang. As we see the field on screen there, Sergio Sette Camara on pole, Ryo Hirakawa second on the grid, Sasha Fenestraz third on the grid, again showing once again his qualifying prowess. It's 1 point bonus for him. Then Nick Cassidy, Tomoki Nojiri, Kazuki Nakajima and Kenta Yamashita lining up 7th with Ukyo Sasahara, the replacement for Yuri Vips, starting 8th. There are all the drivers in Q3. Yuhi Sakaguchi and Naoki Yamamoto were 9th and 10th on the grid, ahead of Roki Ishura, Tadasuke Makino, Sho Suboi, Yuji Kunimoto, and then the drivers knocked out in Q1 were Narei Fukusumi, Kunai Sakakoshi, Kazuki Oyu, Kamui Kobayashi, and Toshiki Oyu had his time removed. He is starting last after his crash in Q1.
Not the best time, as I said, for Oyu, the TCS Nakajima driver. In-game Motorsport team there down in the garages, getting ready for the lap to the pits. Hirakawa, though, is still leading the Drivers' Championship. As you can see, Sho Suboi second position, Ishua is third, Kenta Yamashita in 4th, Nick Cassidy down in 5th. But Cassidy, from that qualifying session, he had a really nice run out, his best qualifying of the season so far. And Nick Cassidy he's having a slightly awkward season, Leigh, and he's, I don't know, he hasn't managed to quite get the results he wanted, but mainly because of poor qualifying.
Qualifying has something a bit of a sticking point for the Team Tom's drivers over the last few seasons. It's not something new. It's just for whatever reason they have had great difficulty turning on the tyre in qualifying session. That's something that's gone back quite a few seasons, but they have always been quick enough and always been intelligent enough drivers to be able to power through that in the races. bring strategy to their advantage. Now, they have a little bit less strategy to work with in the 2020 season because of the new provisions in the sporting regulations due to the coronavirus pandemic. There's no refueling, so that particular avenue is out. And of course, this year there was a move to only a single tyre compound anyway, so you can't mess around on particular tyre strategies, switching from soft to mediums. Everyone is on the soft tyre from last year, so there is actually a little bit less wiggle room this year. So, and it means a little bit less wiggle room to actually turn a race around should you start further than the grid. Cassidy, by getting his car fourth on the grid, this is actually a good opportunity to really give a kick into his championship challenge. But he will note that Hiro Kirakawa is in the row just directly in front of him.
Well, let's hear what the man himself had to say about the situation. A couple of weeks ago, I caught up with Nick Cassidy, who was in Japan, and I was somewhere else.
Nick Cassidy, welcome. And the Ventolin Team Tom's car, Round Sportsline Sugo, how much are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, cheers for having me on, Sam. I'm looking forward to it. At the driver's perspective, it's one of the most fun places we go to. Super high speed, no room for error, quite narrow. It almost reminds me of Macau in terms of off-track is grass, but quite often, the edge of the circuit, there's a bit of a drop. And so when you go off, you're off in a big way, almost, straight to a wall. So yeah, that's definitely gets the blood flowing. In terms of our performance, we had a good result there last year, but I'd say that was more based on strategy rather than outright speed. Personally, it's been quite a strong track for me though. And I actually had my first ever pole there in Super Formula in 2017. So I hope to be able to replicate some of that speed.
Now, you mentioned race strategy and you getting advantage through that. And you've had a bit of a record for that, looking after the tyres really well on these Dallara chassis. You seem to be able to make the Yokohamas work just for you in a way a lot of other drivers can't. And we did see that play out last time out. However, you were held up by the team rookie car just at the end of the race. And I think you lost a couple of seconds, and that lost you a chance at winning the race overall. Did you feel that you missed a great opportunity there?
Yeah, a little bit, mate. But that's racing as well. And yeah, certainly one of our strengths has been tyre degradation. And so, we're very good in the long run, but ultimately at the moment, a big kind of focus on my side of the garage is the question, why can't we turn the tyre on for one lap in qualifying? And to be honest, it's frustrating because I know that I have the speed to be starting at the front. When the car's in the window, we are very quick. But it's not been there enough on Saturdays or Sunday mornings this year. And so that's making our races a lot more difficult. However, at Okayama, we're given a great opportunity where after the first corner, I could be fourth. So to be fair, just good fortune. And I kind of look at the race a little bit like, I can be disappointed about a bit of lap traffic or the pit stop or something like that maybe cost a win. However, I was pretty fortunate to also go from 10th to 4th at the first corner as well. So that's motorsport and just the way it played out.
It seemed to be it was a very entertaining race from where we were sitting, put it that way. But it's an interesting one because you talk about those long runs, that tyre management. And now I know I asked you this over and over again, but I'm going to do it on the record this time. Why have you not tested a Formula One car, Nick? You've got enough super license points to have a super license. Get that 300 kilometers and you should be in Formula One, shouldn't you?
Oh, thank you. Look, I'd love to. Firstly, I must say that my attention immediately is got a fresh contract with Envision Version Racing for Formula E next year, and that's something I'm really looking forward to. That's a championship I'm excited about, very high level, a lot of manufacturers, and that's where my career is headed for the next few years, which I'm certainly not unhappy about, I must say. So, of course, Formula One's always there, and it would be awesome to be able to get the opportunity to have a test. For sure, it's something I'm still interested in. I would love to be there, but it's finding that right opportunity to be able to do so.
There's only so many cans of Red Bull you can drink on the podium. Well, thank you very much, Nick Cassidy, for joining us here on The Race. Stay tuned. We've got brilliant action coming up.
That was fascinating stuff, Leigh. I mean, all that talk about Formula E, Envision Virgin Racing coming up for Cassidy in his career. Do you think that's a good move?
I think it's a good international move for him, Sam, because although Nick has had plenty of plaudits and absolutely well-deserved plaudits in Japan, not just from Super Formula, but also from Super GT as well. He's always ached for the international part of his career. And I remember when I covered his racing when he was in European Formula 3 several years ago, it never really took off, and funding was always an issue. So now he's in a position where he's with manufacturer squads, and he has the opportunity now to really spread his wings. And, you know, in a sense, it's also good news for Super Formula. You know, he's a driver who's coming over here with, you know, in a sense, the Super Formula qualifications, as it were, in the same way that, you know, Eddie Irvine, Ralf Schumacher, Michael Schumacher even competed in this championship for a while in the very early 90s, is Satoru Nakajima and Andre Lauter. The list goes on, but they all come with Super Formula / Formula Nippon in big letters, you know. So I think it would not necessarily be. I think it plays out very, very well for him, and it's indicative. Like, this is a very, very tough championship, Sam. It's not like a lot of junior championships. This is a mixture of young drivers and professionals, you know. So you have to be very, very, very tough, an incredibly talented driver to win here. And if he takes that success elsewhere, it shines a great light on this series.
And that's one of the real unique things about Super Formula, is that mix of young drivers and professionals. And we did see that play out last time out in round 2. And that difference between experience started off, one of the experienced drivers, didn't even get to the start of the race, did he?
Yeah, it was an unfortunate start for Senna Sakaguchi. He actually crashed on the warm-up lap, so he did not actually get to start. He was settling in for one of the Le Mans drivers, as saw Hirakawa starting on pole, went straight into the lead, but it was rookie Toshiki Oyu actually causing the incident in the first corner. He clipped into Sasha Fenestraz, who then was in turn turned into Oyu's teammate to Makino in turn 1, taking both of them out. Sasha Fenestraz, his teammate, Kenta Yama, his teammate was Sakaguchi. He went out on the opening lap, so a horrible race for Kondo Racing there. We saw a great battle there between the two in-cars, between Ushura and Sho Suboi, and it resulted in Sho Suboi's first victory in Super Formula. Both of them got around Hirakawa in pit stops. Cassidy came through to finish third and really kick-started his championship season.
Well, yeah, really. I mean, it was an unusual race, that one. It took us over an hour to get going in the actual race. So, like, the free race goings on were pretty exciting. But then it was a bit of a tyre race after that. Nick Cassidy, he talks about his keeping the tyres alive, how he was working with the tyres, and how qualifying hadn't really worked out for him, but the races are going really well. Seems to have solved that here at Sportsland Sugo, because this man, Ryo Hirakawa, he's been the dominant force in Super Formula all season. Cassidy starting near the front, Sportsland Sugo, the only track that Michael Schumacher raced in Formula Nippon back in the day. Do you reckon that gives him a start? A high start position gives him a better chance of delivering something this weekend?
I think it does. I think he has an opportunity. Like I said, he has been the master of strategy, race-long strategy at Team Tom's for quite a while. And you know, if it means, we see Nick Cassidy a lot gaining 7-8 positions in a race. If he can really turn this particular event into a race victory, that will be really what he needs, because Hirakawa's lead is actually growing significantly as we see Sasha Fenestraz on the grid there. A note, actually, quickly, Fenestraz, while he is on the screen, very, very, very talented young driver, formerly part of the Renault Formula 1 junior driver team. Has showed himself very, very well in Super Formula so far. Has been qualified second, third, and third. He got a podium position in his first race in the championship. As we saw, didn't finish the second race after being taken out by Toshiki Oyu. So he will really be looking to turn that around this weekend. A very, very, very quick talent, the French-Argentine driver.
Now, in case you're wondering, there is actually an 11-minute, apparently, delay to the start of the race. We believe that's been caused by an incident caused by Yuki Sekiguchi, but we haven't actually seen it yet, so we're not quite sure of the severity of the incident. And I'm looking, and it doesn't look to me like there is a space on the starting grid. So quite what has gone on with Sekiguchi, we'll keep you posted on. But while we're keeping you posted, it's a perfect time to hit like and hit subscribe. Now, remember, if you hit the subscribe button and notification bell, you'll never miss a video from the race. And your likes and subscribes allow us to bring you all this great live racing. Now, don't forget to hit the-race.com. Don't forget the hyphen. Head to therace.com for the best motorsport coverage on the web. In-depth coverage of Formula 1, MotoGP, Formula E, Indycars, and racing esports, or racing esports, if you like it in the Spanish sense. And of course, on social media, don't forget to follow at We Are The Race on Twitter and on Instagram and on many other types of social media that I am not on, because I don't really understand what they are. Which ones do you use, Leigh?
All of them, all at the same time, which is probably why I look as ravaged as I do, to be frankly honest.
Ravaged? There you go. Well, later on tonight as well, because the racing action isn't over with Super Formula, later on tonight, or tomorrow, or this morning, we have esport action with the 4th round of the Indy Pro Series by FSR on R Factor around Virginia International Raceway. You all. Then next weekend, Saturday, Nürburgring action back with round 6 of the NLS, which is the Nürburgring series that was previously known as VLN. And then I think there's another form of GT racing on Sunday. Indeed, there is. It's Super GT.
As a championship, really is quite a hell of a lot of fun. Okay, yeah, it's half a Fuji championship, as we say, but you know what? It's still thrown up some fantastic racing so far this year, Sam, and looking forward to the next installment there for again.
Who was saying Kazuki Nakajima is back in the Super Formula paddock. He raced at Le Mans, of course, and then because of the coronavirus restrictions, he wasn't able to race last time out 2 weeks ago in Super Formula, but he's now got an all clear from the COVID tests, the PCR tests you have to do at the airport as you arrive into Japan, and your mandatory 2 weeks of isolation. He has made it onto the grid, but because Japan has slightly relaxed its entry bar, we're going to see a few more of the international drivers starting to appear in this championship, including, apparently, Yuri Vips.
Yes, I mean, this is actually it's an interesting ongoing story with Yuri Vips, his position at Team Mugen Honda, which at the moment has been taken up by Ukyo Sasahara, who's actually another Red Bull junior driver. Now, Yuri Vips has been a bit of a change, not just in the restrictions for entering Japan, it's been a little bit of a change in the FIA's interpretations of what we may see in the super license points in future seasons. Now, Vips came over to Japan in a hope to have a championship run that will get him the necessary points to allow him to get a license to eventually get to Formula 1, Sam. Of course, that has really been a topsy-turvy situation since Vips hasn't run yet in Super Formula. He's had a few outings in Formula 2, and he's had a few outings in the regional Formula, the Formula European series in Europe. So he hasn't actually settled on any one championship so far this year. Now, he is looking to get back onto the grid for the 4th round at Autopolis. Whether we'll see him for the whole championship thereafter, we are still not entirely certain. But he did race here last year. He raced in the season finale at Suzuka and had a solid enough run to the checkered flag. It'd be interesting to see how he can manage that. He's not really raced these cars in over a year now, and then we may only see him for a few rounds if he does actually complete the championship. The one thing is for certain, he'll not actually pick up any Super Formula points or super license points from 2020. He's not actually committed to any championship long enough to obtain them.
That's not quite correct, Leo Gorman. He could pick up points from the Super Formula Championship because he will have completed enough of the distance, because Super Formula has adopted the 2 races dropped scores regulation. So he could have a decent championship finish still in Super Formula just from competing from round 4 onwards. So he should be able to get up a few points. However, the FIA have changed the super license scoring criteria to date it back 4 years, and that really only helps him, but it's still not enough to get a drive in Formula 1 next year.
Okay, that's actually a heads up. I wasn't actually aware that he would only pick up results for the drop scores rounds. Well, okay, that makes a difference. As I said, you can pick up points for going back 4 seasons only if you apply for it, though. I think the FIA have stipulated that they would only accept that in extraneous circumstances, as it were. As you see, Ukyo Sasahara, and this is the guy we mentioned just a few moments ago. He's done a solid job so far, replacing Yuri Vips of Team Mugen. He's had 2 13th finished places. It was probably more impressive at Motegi, at the opening round in Motegi, if I'm to be frankly honest. At Okayama a few weeks ago, he was slightly anonymous, I think it's fair to say. Starting 8th on the grid, I think he'll be looking to do a solid job, get some proper points for himself in the season before he goes off. I'm pretty certain we may still see him in various other positions as he goes on in his career, Sam. I think he is, a not unreasonably talented driver. He's finished 11th and 13th so far this season, so he'll be hoping for some first points for this weekend.
I think it wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't be absolutely staggered to see him continue in Super Formula in an extra Team Mugen car. Now, whether Red Bull is willing to stump up the budget for another Red Bull Mugen Honda out there, I'm not sure. But it does seem a shame that if he doesn't get to continue competing this season, because his guest drives in both Super GT and Super Formula have proven to be really successful, and obviously working with his engineer. It's unusual to see in the Japanese team like Mugen, but he has a Westerner, a Gaijin race engineer.
I think the other aspect, it's not just a case, Red Bull Junior team may only have 1 seat in the Super Formula at the moment, but Red Bull as a whole have 2 seats. Of course, Seta Kamara is in the B-Max with Motorsport car, which was a seat housed by Lucas Auer last season, who was also a Red Bull Junior driver at that time. Lucas, of course, gone back to DTM for this season. So Red Bull do have, at the moment, as it stands, do have the option seemingly on 2 seats in this championship. So there are avenues for Sasahara to come back and take a drive. I think he has been quite impressive. I just think he's one of these drivers who needs a bit more time. He didn't come into the season with quite a lot of testing, mostly because a lot of testing ended up getting cancelled. But talented driver, still a young guy, and we'll really see how he goes as the future goes on a very, very relatively packed grid, actually, Sam. I think this is probably the most busy we've seen a Super Formula grid so far this season.
I think it's the busiest starting grid I've seen in any racing championship this season, actually. With the COVID restrictions means there's not often many drivers on the grid. There is a driver who looks like he's late for the grid, running back from the little racing drivers room. I can't quite see who that was, but you can see his overalls round his waist. And I don't think it was Cassidy. He was heading past that car. Maybe whoever was in 4th position, 3rd or 4th position, maybe that was. Can't quite see who that driver was running back onto the grid. But nonetheless, the safety car driver in the safety GTR Nissan has hopped into his driving seat finally, and the red lights have popped on starting grid. So we will see that starting grid start to thin out quite shortly. This is due to the race delay, so those who are just joining in, due to Yuhi Sekiguchi having a little bit of a moment in the free race warm-up and damaging a barrier somewhere or tyre wall. We've had a short delay to the race start, but as you can see, the drivers are getting to their cars now, ready for some great action around Sportsland Sugo. So if you're enjoying this already, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We're going to have superb action around this 3.704 kilometre, 2.302 mile Sportsland Sugo circuit, and they're going to be heading off into the first corner in the warm-up lap in not too long. You're watching round 3 of the 2020 Super Formula Championship on the race.
And of course, Sam, if you enjoy this, we have more rounds later this year. In a month's time, we are going to Autopolis for the 4th round before going to Suzuka for rounds 5 and 6, a double header on the December 5th and 6th before the championship finale. Just 5 days before Christmas, that's going to be at Fuji Speedway, the championship decider on December 20th. Those last 3 rounds could be pivotal, Sam, because the temperature is going to be very, very, very cool. Not the temperatures we would normally be used to at a Super Formula round.
I mean, and that's absolutely right. You talk about the temperature. Sportsland Sugo is normally run mid-summer in both Super GT and Super Formula. It's October. It's a bit cooler than they're used to. Yesterday, there was quite a lot of rain. The practice sessions were disrupted. The qualifying sessions were disrupted. And the warm-up was disrupted. And that means the pole sitter, Sergio Seta Camara, hasn't even done a practice start at Sportsland Sugo or in a Super Formula car at all. So he's got an awful lot of learning to do. And that learning is going to start very soon. But before Sergio Seta Camara starts to learn what it is to race in Super Formula, let's have a look at some of the podcasts coming up on the race. The race podcasts bring you the very latest insight and analysis from around the major stories from key motorsport series. Go to your normal podcast provider and search the race or find the links on the-race.com. Don't forget that hyphen. The podcast series include Formula One, of course. The race podcast on F1 brings you comprehensive coverage of every single aspect of Grand Prix racing, with discussion of the latest breaking news, debate about the biggest topics, and in-depth analysis after each Grand Prix. But there's E-Priest too on the Formula E podcast. Get inside the inside track on all things Formula E with Jack Nichols and the-race.com's Formula E journalist Sam Sniffer-Smith. A season 6 review with Dario Franchitti went live a little while ago. That's well worth catching up on. MotoGP as well. Everything you need to know from the fascinating world of unstable engines with only 2 wheels attached to them, with host Toby Moody. The-race.com's MotoGP correspondent Simon Patterson, who apparently is the man of the moment, plus special guests. Gary Anderson isn't one of those because he has his own podcast. The former Formula One designer and technical director, Gary Anderson, gives his take on all things Formula One, giving opinions and technical insights. Bring back V10s. Super Formula cars have 4 cylinders, and I think they sound great. However, Bring Back V10s celebrates a classic era when Formula One was loud on the track and indeed off it. Join us for a series of deep dive episodes revisiting memorable stories. And hear Ed Straw say the word Leigh. Hidden Voices, a new podcast from Claire Cottingham, takes a look at diversity in motorsport. And finally, Esports, I believe it's pronounced, the big talking points in the booming world of motorsports, esports, brought to you by The Race.
Lots of content there, Sam. Lots for everyone to dig your teeth into. And by the way, a quick hello to everyone. If you've joined us this weekend for the first time following Josh Ravel's wonderful Super Formula intro video that went live this weekend, you know, welcome to the race, welcome to Super Formula. We're going to be ready for some absolutely stellar action. And what a time to join this series. You know, to watch the first race at somewhere like Sportsland Sugo. This is quite a track, Sam. And you know, even in these cars, the qualifying time, the pole time for Sergio Seta Camara, 1 minute 4.235. This is a very, very quick circuit.
It absolutely is. I mean, just that, we'll talk about it a lot as we go into the warm-up lap, but that final corner, that final sequence, that's every corner around here at Sportsland Sugo, on a map of the track, and we'll have one up on the screen in a little while, it doesn't look like a particularly interesting track. It almost looks a little bit like an airfield-based British club racing circuit. Wait till you see the onboard. I mean, you can see the hill there on the start-finish straight, the crest of the hill on the straight. This is an uphill, down dale, round the woods, proper old-school racetrack, and it really catches out drivers. You've got, you know, you never hear discussion about track limits at Sportsland Sugo because the track limits are a bit of grass and a barrier.
Particularly coming out that last corner, it's quite reminiscent, I think, of Alton Park to a degree. It's a long, lingering, very fast right-hander. And to a degree, I'll throw in actually also the old Parabolica at Monza before they put any of the runoff area in. I'm talking 1990 Monza when Derek Warwick had his massive shunt there. That's the kind of runoff and speed you have in that final corner. It is just quite brilliant to watch on board. And I hopefully we do get a quick on board before we actually start the warm-up lap, because it really is something to behold.
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. There's a lot of discussion about these cars. Let's talk a little bit about the cars as we look at Ryo Hirakawa, championship leader. Every single car on the grid is an identical Delaris chassis, but the rear ends of the cars are not identical. There's an engine war going on between Honda and Toyota. Both manufacturers are using a 2-litre 4-cylinder engines, which are turbocharged with direct injection. They're kicking out in excess of 600 brake horsepower. The exact numbers are not known because they don't disclose it, but these little 2-litre power units are pretty much similar in performance terms to the V6s used in Formula One, just without the hybrid systems. Each car is fitted with an overtaking boost system. Each driver gets a certain amount, 30 seconds of extra fuel flow. They're fuel flow limited engines, which gives them a little bit of boost around the circuit. You'll be able to tell when they're using that boost system from the lights above the roll hoop. I'll talk about that when the lights are switched on, which they're not currently, as we look down at the Vantolin Team Tom's car of Nick Cassidy. Every single car is running on Yokohama's tyres. It's a single compound, the soft compound, which we saw in last season's series, where there were 2 compounds of tyre. It's only a single compound. There was going to be an even softer tyre brought along for this year, but the pandemic got in the way of things, so we might see that appear next season, that super soft qualifying style tyre. And it is going to be a great race. But first of all, we have the Japanese national anthem. Well, Leo Gorman, take us through the starting order, if you will, as we start get ready for the warm-up lap.
Well, Sam, it's quite a starting grid for this, the third round of the 2020 Super Formula Championship. And yes, I did almost forget what year it was, which is actually not completely untypical for me, sadly. Now, starting 19th on the grid, he is a young driver making his Super Formula debut in 2020. Toshiki Oyu has qualified well in the first 2 rounds, but has actually struggled at the starts of both races. Oyu, no time in qualifying this weekend for TCS Nakajima Racing. He starts 19th and last on the grid. Kamui Kobayashi, 18th on the grid. Difficult session for him. So 1 minute 5.943. He was knocked out in Q1 Group A for Team KCMG. Kazuya Oshima, he's had a bit of a tricky start to the season. This is his 3rd consecutive race where he starts 17th, has finished 10th and 16th so far for Rookie Racing, the single car entry. He's got a 1 minute 5.915. Then 16th on the grid is the substitute to Kudai Sukakoshi, stepping in for Tatiana Calderon for Drago Racing Honda. He starts 16th on the grid as a 1 minute 5.451. And Rei Fukuzumi also knocked out in Q1 for Team Dandelion Racing. Again, difficult qualifying for him. He started 16th last time out in Okayama. He starts 15th here at Sugo. That's a 1 minute 5.487 for him. Then drivers knocked out in Q2. Yuji Kunimoto got 7th place in the last round. That's 4 points for him. He starts 14th with a 1 minute 7.7. Then you have Sho Suboi, race winner. His first race win last time out for Ying Racing. He is second in the championship, but he starts 13th today. Similar starting position to the opening round. That's a 1 minute 5.95997 for him. Just ahead of Suboi is Tadasuki Makino for TCS Nakajima Racing. He starts 12th with a 1 minute 5.5 209. And then ahead of him on the grid, 11th, it's the other Indycar, Hiroki Ishura. He's qualified 6th twice in a row so far of the season. Can't keep that run up. He starts 11th with a 1 minute 5.146. He finished 2nd last time out. He'll be hoping for a repeat of that today. Probably a bit difficult. 10th on the grid is double champion, Super Performance champion from 2013 2018, and also made an appearance in an FP1 session in Formula 1 last year, Japan for Toro Rosso. It is Naoki Yamamoto. He starts 10th on the grid with a 1 minute 4.498. Just ahead of Yamamoto is Yuki Sakaguchi for Team Impul. He starts 9th on the grid. The quickest driver knocked out of Q2. He get qualified with a 1 minute 4.497. Now the drivers knocked out in Q1. It's for Team Mukin, 8th on the grid. It's a substitute for Yuri Vips. It is Ukyo Sasahara. He's qualified 13th twice. He improves to 8th with a 1 minute 4.739. Hope it's not the final appearance for him, but we shall see. Kenta Yamashita returns after his break from Le Mans. He qualified 7th on the grid with a 1 minute 4.582. Then on row 3, it's Kazuki Nakajima. He's had difficult qualifying for quite a long time, but does well here. 6th on the grid with a 1 minute 4.453. And 5th on the grid is Tomoki Nojiri. He's a former national class winner of the Japanese Formula 3 Championship. Actually, just his birthday last month. He starts 5th on the grid with a 1 minute 4.424. Then Nick Cassidy, reigning champion, former New Zealand Grand Prix winner and twice TRS Championship, starts 4th on the grid. And then it's Sasha Fenestraz, 3rd on the grid once again for Kondo Racing with 1 minute 4.325. Then Ryo Hirakawa starts 2nd on the grid on the front row, still keeping that run going with a 1 minute 4.288. And then 1st on the grid, you saw him pull into his position there. It's Sergio Seta Camara, his debut race for BMAX Racing by Motorpark Honda. Pole position and 3 points as a 1 minute 4.235. The race is about to go, Sam.
53 laps of Sportsland Sugo. It's going to be action all the way from first corner, horseback corner, backstretch corner, and rainbow corner. Mandatory tyre change you saw on your screen between lap 10 and the lap 52. You have to come in and change your tyres. Unless it rains, well, you're going to have to change them anyway. Rain is a possibility, but doesn't look likely. It's going to be raining at the water park. All of the lights are on the top of the roll hoops on the different car. Their overtaking system is fully charged. That's what it means. We'll cover that a little bit more when you see them burst into action. But who will be first into the first corner? Sergio Seti Camara, pole position alongside Ryo Hirakawa on the right-hand side of the grid there. Car angled over towards the racing line. The green flag waves. The man legs it in the background, and the 5 lights will come on and then go out, and we will be racing. Super Formula at Sportsland Sugo is go. You're watching on the race. Terrible start from 4th position there, being absolutely swamped, but into the lead stays. Oh no, goes Hirakawa.
We're going to crash, Sam. I think that's Fenestraz into the gravel again. He had a bad start. I think he may have been necked by Kazuki Nakajima going into the first corner. That is unfortunate again for Fenestraz. I think it is off because I think it is, I'm not sure, I think that might be Nojiri that's actually in 4th place. So Hirakawa leads again, great start, but you mentioned that Sergio Seta Camara hasn't had a start yet. Well, I think it showed there. As you see, Nick Cassidy's up to 3rd place. He's going in for 2nd place, Sam.
Yeah, he's absolutely, Cassidy's already all over it, but brilliant start by Hirakawa, disappearing off in the distance. That green and white car is dismantling Team Tomska. But look there, that white car coming up from around the outside. That is a great move, very simple move there. Spectacular around the Team Mugen car. That is pure Sportsland Sugo racing, and there is action going back all the way through the field. But Cassidy wants to get the move done on camera, whose inexperience in this Dallara chassis really showed just there. And Cassidy's going to have to get it done because he is now coming under pressure from Naoki Yamamoto in that white car. And that Mugen car is really struggling here. Nojiri's falling back now. Sakaguchi, he did take the start because he's there in the tow, coming down a start-finish straight, going round the outside into the first corner, gets it done. You can see those, doesn't get it done. You can see those lights flashing when they're flashing slowly. The overtaking system is not in use. When it's flashing quickly, the overtaking system is in use, and that's a little extra power boost for both drivers. There is a delay to the lights flashing, so that the driver in front doesn't necessarily know that the driver chasing him is using the overtaking boost. But there is that trouble. That is an engine problem by the look of it, not a tyre trouble. That looks like an engine gone, yeah.
That is very, very interesting, Sam, because that is Fenestras as well. So he's got out of the gravel. So either something has actually also gone bang, or maybe, it doesn't look as if anything else is rubbing. You see Fenestras has pulled into the pits now, and another awful start for him, taken out from behind again, shall we say. As you mentioned, brilliant start, sir, from Naoki Yamamoto from 10th on the grid. He is currently riding fourth. Also, good start for Sakaguchi. He is 6th after starting 9th. We saw him challenging Nojiri there. Hirakawa coming across to start the next lap now. Sergio Setikamara has stepped in, Sam, and he's pulled the gap. As we see Fenestras, yep, definitely something else is burning on that car.
Yeah, that's not gone well for Fenestras there. So that's not good. But the battle between the KCMG cars here, that'll be
that's Kobayashi.
Yes, it's Kobayashi, but he's going to be having a slightly difficult time there for Sugio Matsuda, the Super GT many-time champion, who is the team manager in the Super Formula Series for his 2 drivers scrapping. And they're not really scrapping over important positions, but keep an eye at the top of your screen there. You can see Nick Cassidy has dropped back a little bit, but that's Naoki Yamamoto right on his tail. But is Hirakawa's gap coming down? Is Kamara starting to catch? I think he is.
And this is an important race too, Sam, not just for the drivers, not just for the teams, but also for the manufacturers. It's very, very, very disappointed, and I think rightfully annoyed Fenestras. We'll see a replay of that start hopefully soon, because I think he got absolutely pumped it from the back. Toyota really have done very, very well out of the first 2 rounds. I think they took the first 4 positions at Motegi. They took the first 5 positions. As we see the fence there from Nick Cassidy against Yamamoto. Yamamoto really forcing the issue and takes 3rd place, Sam. That was very, very, very feisty from 2 main title protagonists for the last couple of seasons. Yamamoto winning out this time around and takes 3rd place. As we see the replay here.
That was classic use of the overtaking boost system. You can see Cassidy is flashing slowly. He's already used the system because it's flashing, so you're not allowed to use 2 boosts, 2 hits of the overtake button. So the lights will flash slowly when you've just used it. Cassidy was flashing slowly. He'd used up his overtaking boost. Yamamoto took advantage, hit his button, and just blasted past down the start-finish straight. Cassidy will come back at him though. But look behind the pair of them. Yuhi Sakaguchi in that Team Impul car is hovering around not far behind them, so it's worth keeping an eye on him.
Yamamoto is a driver. He's actually won here at Sugo twice before, so he knows his track very, very well. Sakaguchi, you know what, here's an odd little thing. He's a driver to keep an eye out on the Team Impul racer. He made his debut in Super Formula in 2016.
Hello, what's this?
Oh, it's a broken front wing, Sam. That is a broken front wing. I think that's Nakajima who's gone into the pits with a broken front wing.
And the battle through the field is going on right now. Sorry to jump in. The Freebond car, they're getting past one of the KCMG cars. My timing screen is going wild with the amount of action going on there. We didn't see what happened to Nakajima, but hopefully we'll see a replay. But he's had contact with somebody somewhere, and he's in for a new front wing. This is outside the mandated tyre change period, so he will have to stop again after this.
And they're having trouble getting that front wing off, and this happens when you do have broken front wing. You don't necessarily have the catches still on the wing to actually get the part off. Also bear in mind, you know, as we've mentioned before, there is a reduced manpower in the pit crews, the pit lanes so far this year. So it's not necessarily the A pit crews working the races, Sam.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
We have seen some delayed. Yes, we have seen some delayed pit stops so far this year, but that's going to be a disaster for Nakajima, because as he said, it's outside the pit window. He has to come back in again later in this race, as we see Hirakawa leading from Sergio Setikamara by 1.8 seconds. Yamamoto in 3rd place. Nick Cassidy has dropped just over 2nd behind Yamamoto, and with Tomoki Nojiri just a second behind him. Kamui Kobayashi, 8th place, Sam. That is a wonderful start for a driver who actually started 18th on the grid.
Yeah, he's worked his way up the order. We saw him passing his teammate earlier on, but that KCMG team, Kobayashi's really on form. Another one of these drivers who had to sit out a race and is now back in the Super Formula fold. But as you mentioned, with the restrictions on personnel in Super GT and in Super Formula, some of the teams are rolling through different personnel on the pit wall and in the pit lane, so they're not always using their best crews, and that's one of the reasons we don't have refueling in Super Formula so far this season. Will it appear by the end of the year? It's quite potential we might see some Super Formula refueling restart. But let's look at the start once over again and see if we can pick up what happened to the Nakajima's Antolin team Tom's car. He had a bad start, but doesn't seem to see. Oh, it broke. Oh, and that.
Yeah,
that's why. Yeah.
That's what I mentioned. Nakajima had hit Fenestras on the opening lap, but he didn't come in straight away. He waited 5 laps before coming in, so I figured it may have been a different incident. Fenestras had a bad start, was slow away from third on the grid. Then you see Nakajima locks up into the side. So maybe possibly damage on the front wing, and it's just taken him a few laps for that to really become such an issue that he needed to be pitted. It wouldn't have surprised me if they were trying to hold him out until lap 10, but it reached a point when it was just too much to really hold of. Kamui Kobayashi, you mentioned there a second ago, he is really climbing up the order, and this is him passing one of the Kondo racing guys.
That was around the outside.
That's Yamashita he's just got around, so I'm assuming that's put Kobayashi up to 6th place. Sam, you know 7th place. You know Kamui Kobayashi has not actually won a Super Formula race yet.
I didn't actually realise he hadn't actually won one yet, but he's certainly got the Kobayashi fever at the moment because he is moving up. Yuhi Sekiguchi is not far ahead of him. You can see that on your screen. There's Sekiguchi, there is Kobayashi. So Sekiguchi is the next target for Kamui Kobayashi, the former Caterham F1 and Toyota F1 man. But here's a big battle going on behind him. This is one of the things about Sportsland Sugo. This old school racetrack just really lends itself. Just whenever we come here, we have a cracking race.
And one thing I think we need to start point out now is this is something we saw at Motegi as well. Yuki Sekiguchi, 6th place, just ahead of Kamui Kobayashi. He's holding the pace up a bit. I think he's probably going to be on a long run in his tires, so he's maybe edging his tires out a little bit more. Not running quite as hard, quite as fast as the drivers ahead of him, but it is creating the gap. And we saw this at the first race where Sekiguchi was running 5th for quite a long time, but it allowed the top 4 to actually get away, and that it resulted in Sekiguchi eventually having an incident with Narefu Kazumi. But Sekiguchi currently 6th place. The gap to Nojiri in 5th place is already 4.5 seconds. It's edging out a little bit more and a little bit more. It would not surprise me if we're seeing something similar here, where he's holding onto his tires, trying to extend his run, but the gap is edging outwards. There's a lot of clear air ahead of Tomoki Nojiri. Those guys who are behind Sekiguchi will be absolutely bursting to get past him to make hay while the sun can shine.
Now, keep an eye on the roll hoops of the different cars. You might see these green lights above the driver's heads. What does that mean? Well, that is, as I mentioned earlier, that is the indicator for the overtaking boost system. The driver's got a button on his steering wheel that allows him to, his will, to use a slightly higher fuel flow rate mode on the engine. And when he uses that, he gets a bit more power, but he has a limited amount of time that he can use it for. And when he's got that button depressed, you'll see that light above the driver's head start flashing really quickly. But once he's used it up, he's taken his finger off the button, it'll start to flash slowly. And when it's flashing slowly, the driver cannot use that go faster button for that period. It's about 30 seconds he can't use it for. And the amount of time the driver can use that button for is limited. So you'll see those through the race. Those lights will change from green to red and then go out altogether. When it's gone out altogether, they've got no boost left. So those drivers are really restricted. So that's why those roll hoop lights are super critical to watch. So I know a few of you've been asking about that in the chat. It's about 30 brake horsepower extra. So it's a fair chunk, as we're seeing the rookie racing Toyota powered car getting, rather beaten up by the TCS Nakajima team drivers. And it's Oyo trying to redeem himself somewhat, but needs to move up the field significantly, because this is the battle for 15th, 16th and 17th.
Oyo needs a clean race, Sam. He is clearly a talent. He is clearly a quick young driver. He's had a little bit of success. He's won races in Japanese Formula 3. He's been a race winner in the Euro Formula Open as well. He's a race winner and 3rd overall in Japanese Formula 4. He's a Honda junior driver. well, you know, that raises whole other questions in the future of his career. But he has had two unfortunate. He had a bad start in the first round, and then had some technical issues, and then he had a crash last time out at Okayama. He needs a clean race. As we see Kobayashi pulling into the pits. Now, this is critical, Sam, because he was stuck behind Sakaguchi, as we mentioned a few moments ago, who was running slow. This is his opportunity to get a pit stop out of the way, potentially running clear air for quite a long time, make up as much time as possible, and possibly gain positions that way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has to make a pit stop, and Kobayashi's decided to make it early, as has the TCS Nakajima car there. The team are in making just that mandatory tyre change. So these tyres can essentially do the whole race, and they all know it. A little bit slow on the left rear there, and did the mechanic get that one on properly? It looked a little bit...
That's all you, Sam. That's all you from 18th position. But yeah, that's a big question. We need to keep an eye on that. And that smoke you see coming from the cars coming around the final corner, that's actually then bottoming out. There's a very, very, very bumpy bottom corner. I think it's something that was mentioned quite a few times last year as well. There's the cars bottoming out, coming across that final corner, as we see Naoki Yamamoto beginning to take charge now and look at Seti Kamara again. He had a few laps where he just sat there, cooled his tyres. He had a battle with Cassidy, made that work. He's going to try and go for, as we see Ukyo Sasahara passing one of the Ing cars. That's Ishura for 10th place. So Sasahara takes Ishura for 10th place. It's not the best round so far for the Fukuzumi into the pits. Not the best round so far for the Ing car, considering they're 1-2. Their first ever 1-2 in Super Formula, or even Formula Nippon, actually, last time out, Sam. It's a great effort for them, but not really in the position to rectify it again. Slow stop for Fukuzumi, who was running 12th, I believe. And we go to Seti Kamara back in second place, Yamamoto third, challenging, really keeping a watchful eye on the Brazilian. The other thing to note, Seti Kamara, he is a young driver in the grand sense that, you know, he's actually quite literally young, as we see one of the Tom's cars back. Is that Nakajima in for his mandatory stop? Either way, Yamamoto, he's not going to know Sergio Seti Kamara. This is only his first race in Super Formula. He's not going to know where his strengths are. He's not necessarily going to know where his weaknesses are, as you would with a racer that you've competed with over a number of seasons or a number of events. Sergio Seti Kamara is a completely new rival for Naoki Yamamoto. So it'll be interesting, very interesting to see how he manages the Brazilian in his attempts to get past him as this race goes on, as one of the other Ing cars into the pits. I do believe that shows Suboi. So away, Sam. They're actually... do you know what? That's one thing I've noticed. They're a little bit slow to actually get off their marks in the pit lane.
Yeah, it looks that way. It looks like they're struggling to get off the mark. Maybe, I mean, Forza Suzuka's got quite a low grip pit surface, so that could explain why they're getting away a little bit slow. One question came in earlier on. You can ask us questions in the chat if you want. Tommy Fish has asked why they're weaving to warm their tyres during the race. There are no tyre warmers in Super Formula. They're banned in Super Formula, so the guys come out of the pit lane and you may see them going incredibly slowly because they're on absolutely stone cold tyres. The only temperature they're getting in the tyres is from the mechanic's bottom when he sits on it, and that's not really enough, regardless of what they ate for dinner last night. But there you can see the gaps in the field at the moment. They look a little bit artificially large, with 3.4 second gap between first and second, Hirakawa and Sergio Seti Kamara. I suspect those leading pair are just trying to manage their tyres as the rest of the field gets the job done. What we didn't really see is, didn't talk about, is Naoki Yamamoto and Nick Cassidy's battle. Now, that battle is far from over because Naoki Yamamoto is only just behind Sergio Seti Kamara. Nick Cassidy isn't far behind them, but Tomoki Nojiri in the Team Yukon car isn't far behind Cassidy. None of them have stopped yet, but when they come in, a slight moment, as we get a great battle down the start-finish line, these TCS Nakajima cars, but that is the KCM car going a little bit deep into the first corner and just making it work, actually. And I think that is the sign of tyre temperature playing out as that TCS Nakajima car tries to go around the outside of the Ing car and into the left-right chicane.
Brilliant.
No minivan help. Great racing, but back side by side, switching back up the inside. Didn't quite get it done. This battle isn't over yet.
That is absolutely fantastic stuff from Tadasuki Makino, Hiroki Ashura getting overtaken there. And you know what, that is great driving by both drivers, because it's not just up to the overtaking driver to make the move, nail it, get it done. It's up to the driver being overtaken to not make it such that he actually takes out the driver who's going to get past him. So that is great awareness from both drivers there, as we see. And it's Kobayashi locking up the tires there. Now Kobayashi has stopped. His times so far are not so much quicker. They're still in the high 1 minute 8s. A lot of drivers are in the low 1 minute 8s. A lot of the drivers are doing the mid 1 minute 8. So he's not actually making great hay while the sun shines. I just see Hirakawa. And that is getting past one of the Indycars.
Yeah, he wasn't very happy about that. Leigh, he had his hand out the cockpit. There was some gesticulation going on the lap traffic there.
Sam, this is actually really, really critical and something that we need to take into account. That's Shosupai, who of course pitted already. This lap is so short, lapping does become an issue. Because with the lap at just over a minute long, if you were, say, a little bit further down the field and you'd make a stop and that stop is 35 seconds, you're almost instantly going to drop into the window. So, for example, if you look, say, from 11th, 12th onwards, where Makino or Oshima are, if they stop, they actually fall into the orbit of where Hirakawa is. So lapping actually does become critical in this race.
Yeah, I mean, if you stop, you're essentially going to lose the lead lap. The pit stop in and out, and the pit stop itself takes almost about the same time as a lap. So you do need to make that pit stop at the right time. That's why you're seeing Kobayashi pushing back through the rear end of the field. He won't be actually very far up the track ahead of Hirakawa. So they are chasing each other for the victory, essentially, but almost a lap apart. But Hirakawa will come to pit lane at some point, as will Kamara, as will Yamamoto, as will Cassidy. I think until everybody's made their stop, you can see who's stopped on your screen at the moment and those gaps. Now you can see those who have stopped are all roughly a minute back. All those who haven't are up the road. When those pit stops cycle through, then we'll see the real order of this race. So there's almost 2 races going on at the moment as we take a look at Kudai Sukakoshi.
And what really changes, of course, is when the drivers like the Hirakawas, the Sergio Kamara, the Yamamoto's, Cassidys and Nojiri's are coming through the field, their pace is going to be held up somewhat by those drivers who've already stopped, because they're having to negotiate traffic a little bit more than they normally would. And Kamara and Yamamoto, Cassidy are going to be watching Hirakawa's times like an absolute hawk, to see where he's hitting traffic, how much he's getting held up by, because that will potentially dictate their own pit strategy as well.
Now, quite a few of you might be watching Super Formula for the first time. The 2 comments in the chat are saying that. But before I answer those questions, look at this battle down the start-finish straight, round the outside there. That's
Yamamoto.
That's Naoki Yamamoto, I was about to say, yeah, making a move. And that wasn't even for position, that was lapped traffic. And then Cassidy's got insane.
No, that's
Kamara.
Yes.
That's Kamara.
That's Kamara.
Yeah,
That's Kamara. That's Cassidy. That's Cassidy looking. Yeah, that's Cassidy. He's trying to get 3rd place from Kamara now as well. Somewhere along the line, Kamara has had a little bit of a difficult lap, to say the least. Kamara
Leigh, that's a problem, mate. That is definitely not. That car has lost so much pace. Look how quickly Cassidy's on the back of him, and he's going to go straight past. As is the Freebond car behind him. Look, he's just driving past on the straight. Kamara's just lost power.
Kamara lost a second on the last lap alone, Sam, so something is definitely up there. As we see Cassidy now into 3rd place. Kamara's lost a second on the lap, so I don't know whether it is an issue or whether he's properly overcooked the tyres. That would be a little bit unusual, but Kamara's definitely does not seem to be getting the acceleration coming out of the corners at all as they come into the pit lane now.
Yeah, no, that is a problem there, Leigh. Kamara, that's what caught me out.
Kamara's dropped 3 seconds on the last lap, just over 3 seconds on the last lap, so he is actually properly losing pace now. It was just disappointing for Sergio Kamara. He took a really, really good pull. Now, are they going to do anything else with the tyres, or is this going to be a change to tyres and send him straight back out?
Well, the team boss is looking around the rear of the car.
Yeah.
That stops longer than it should be, certainly. There's something on the right rear of the car. The camera's in the wrong place at the moment, and not quite sure what the issue is, but they're sending him. Well, that was a longer than expected stop, but there was definitely something wrong. Yeah, so there was something wrong.
But yeah, my next question.
He was not looking. That's why we're here on a pit lane. Make sure you look in the direction the cars are coming from. There might be a penalty point for that team there.
Sam, I wonder if he's actually maybe got a suspension issue or something like that.
I'm not sure. I think this is one of these issues we'll find out after the race.
I think it's definitely
the car around, isn't it?
I think it might definitely be a wheel issue because I was
straight off. Yeah,
and into the back. I think he possibly had a broken suspension, broken wheel, because it didn't look as if it was a slow pit stop. But Sergio Sette Camara has gone off out of the race into the barrier. At slow speed, thankfully, and I think he should be absolutely fine. But it didn't look as if there was a pit stop problem, but rather actually they were checking something on the rear wheel, and he's gone out a couple of corners and gone straight on into the barrier.
Now, crucially for the race, these guys have seen that car go off. They're diving into the pit lane because they think, probably quite rightly, that off could mean a safety car here. It wasn't a big hit into the barrier, but into pit lane, we are getting some big runners now. So you've got there, car 19 right on your screen. That is Yuki Sakaguchi, who's had trouble. There you see the Red Bull car, number 15, Sasahara in as well.
Yeah.
But I could see, there's the safety car getting ready, but I can see the top 3, 4, 5 teams getting ready because of this rather odd off. And I think you're absolutely spot on. It was the right rear suspension had failed on that car. The team checked it, didn't notice it, and he just went sailing off the track.
And here's Hirakawa into bit. One of the things that kind of caught my attention is it looked like the team manager was actually kicking the right rear hub as if it were, as if he was like trying to buy it, but almost as if it looked as if they thought there may be an issue. Sent him out anyway, but he's had a slow speed off. We're getting the top guys all coming in now. Because the field is slowing down, it'll be very interesting to see how they all feel back onto the circuit. The driver's going to be looking out for other cars coming down the pit lane in case they get held up. A note, Sam, actually, it was raining all day yesterday as well, and it's something I saw pictures of and almost completely forgot about as Hirakawa comes back onto the pits. It was raining all day yesterday, so I wonder if that is one of the reasons why the pit lane is possibly so green as well. As I mentioned earlier on, cars are getting out of the pits, there's pit stalls very, very, very slowly.
I think that's a big part of it. But as you see the cars getting away, all of the front runners have now come in and made their pit stops. Now we will see how they filter back into the race order. But as we get the safety car, it'll go on for a couple of laps. Gives me time to say you are watching Round 3 of the 2020 Super Formula Series on the Hyphen Race. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Also, if you're in the chat on YouTube, let us know where you're watching from around the world. We'll try and give you a shout out before the end of the race, though. At this pace, it is proving to be quite difficult to follow the chat because there's so much action going on. Well, there is the team boss of Team Impel, Hoshino-san, watching on. He wants to know how his car's getting on. But we have some questions coming in. Do we have the same penalty system as F1? No, we don't. It's slightly different. Are these cars faster than Formula 2? Yes, they are, though not currently because they're high behind the safety car. And that's the reason why we have Sergio Sette Camara. No, he just came out of the pits, went into the left-hander, and there was nothing there. The front wheels steer, but he just couldn't. The car didn't. He braked, but it was too late.
Oh no, he's still sitting in the car, Sam, so that's I'm assuming he's conversing with his team on the radio. One thing to note, actually, and this is not always unusual, sometimes they do instruct drivers to stay in the car until it's completely safe to emerge. One thing to note, Sam, those pit stops, you've had drivers who are already lapped, and I'm waiting for the timing screen to update themselves, but I wonder if we probably have a few drivers probably kicking themselves, probably still a lap down. Now that the field is kind of beginning to sort itself out, the top guys have made a stop without the penalty of having to pit at full speed.
Yeah, this is very much like a NASCAR race. If you pit under green compared to pitting under caution, as we'll probably see later on in Kansas, if you pit under green, you lose an awful lot of time. If you pit under yellow, you don't lose that amount of time. And I think you're absolutely right. I think Ukyo Sasahara, Kudo Sakakoshi, Nirei Fukuzumi, Kamui Kobayashi, who was on that great charge, Toshiki Oyu, Sho Suboi, Kazuki Nakajima was having a nightmare anyway. They are all down. Now, what are we watching here? That is the KCMG car.
That's Kunimoto and Yamashita.
Yeah. Now, they were battling over... Well, Yamashita's now up to 6th. And Kunimoto's up to 5th, yeah. And so that was an important battle. But these guys have all benefited because they hadn't stopped. They've now have stopped. They've made that mandatory pit stop, and they have indeed, you're absolutely spot on there, everybody in the top 10 has got a lap on everybody who isn't on the top 10, with the exception of Yuhi Sakaguchi, who is also a lap down in 10th position. So you're going to see 2 races now, because there is a wave by usually in this series. You're going to see the battle for the top 9 cars, and then a battle for everybody else. And there's 1 point available for everybody else, and everything to play for the top 9. The order at the moment, though, Ryo Hirakawa still leads from Naoki Yamamoto, Nick Cassidy, Tomoki Nojiri, Yuji Kurimoto, Kenta Yamashita, Makino, Tadasuki Makino, and Kazuya Oshima, and Hirokai Ishiura in the Project Mu Ingin car rounds out the top 9. We're now going to have to talk about.
Sam, quick question. We just saw the replay there of Kunimoto overtaking Yamashita. And my thought is, now I must admit, at this side, I'm not getting messages from race control. But I wonder, was that a replay because Kunimoto had overtaken Yamashita? Or was it possibly an overtake because the safety car flags had just been waved?
Well, I was beginning to wonder that. That had the morally hazardous warning about it. I'll still try to get my head around the timing screen. And I do believe, as what I said earlier, is the top 9 are all on the lead lap. And the 10th and back are a lap down. We will get confirmation of that, because the timing screen is still updating, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. Everybody behind Sakaguchi has lost the lead lap. And really, at a short track like Sugo, that's really the amount of contention, isn't it? They're taking their time to recover that stricken BMAX engineering car. We still don't really know what the problem was. I think it was right rear suspension, but could it possibly have been a steering fault?
Possibly. It just seemed to be a lot of attention given to the left rear specifically by the guys in the pit lane, as we see Sergio Sette Camara out of the car. There's something I mentioned earlier on with him being in the car for quite a long time. That is very much becoming more and more of a common factor in motor racing. They do try and tell the drivers to stay in the car as long as possible, because that really is the safest place they can be in a situation like that. Rather than jumping out and wandering around the actual gravel trap while cars are still going around the circuit. And I wonder if we're going to get... I mean, the safety car is really packing them up. On this evidence, it looks like they're going to go green soon, but the fact is you've still got 2 tow trucks in the actual gravel trap. So.
Yeah, we're not going green at the end of this lap, so the driver's frantically trying to warm their tyres. So tyre temperature and pressure is going to be an issue here. Whoever gets that temperature up to speed is just getting interviews from before. One of the things Super Formula does is they have interviews from the drivers before the race, during the race, when you have moments like this. But those moments give us a question, a time to look at your questions in the chat. So hit like, hit subscribe, and then ask us questions. And also tell us where you're watching from. So we had the question coming in, lots of questions coming in about the difference between F2 and Super Formula. There is actually another video on this channel all about that. But essentially, this is the fastest racing series outside of Formula 1. It's quicker than F2, it's quicker than Indycar, quicker than LMP1. These are very, very fast cars indeed. The reason they make that so much pace, because they do have slight more power than F2 and Indycar, but the cars are about 100 kilos lighter, and the tyres are a bit softer. So they've got all the things in their favour. So they are just that bit quicker than all the other single series, with the exception of Formula 1. Formula 1 did reach a period in about 2014, 2015, where the Super Formula cars were actually faster than about the rear third of the Formula 1 grid as well. So this is why a lot of championships, a lot of teams put their young drivers into Super Formula as a finishing school before Formula 1. Yuri Vips, when he returns, is possibly the next one on that list. But also, it pitches you against, as Leigh said at the start of the race, against some of these really seasoned drivers. Other questions coming in are, what's the top speed for Super Formula? Fastest speed, that's already been answered in the chat, but the fastest speed in the race so far is 273.42 kph. I think we might see some faster times in the second half of the race when the cars are in the draft. Now, Leigh, do you want to read out the list of people are watching? Because there's quite a lot.
Well, I'm not sure I could name all the viewers individually because that might take me quite a long time. But I can tell you where they're from. We have viewers. We have viewers, of course, Sam, from New Zealand, Spain, and New Zealand, it's possibly the people cheering for Nick Cassidy there. Argentina, those people cheering possibly for Sasha Fenestraz, although, well, not at the moment because he's not racing. You got viewers from Argentina, New Jersey, Malaysia, Uruguay, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Puerto Rico, North Carolina, Guatemala, Milan, Italy, Michigan, Texas with an exclamation mark, Jakarta, Indonesia, India, Hong Kong, Montreal again for some reason because there's two people watching there, maybe two sides to Montreal that we don't really know about. Finland, people watching in Finland. Oh my God, it's pretty cold there. Then you also got viewers in Ohio, Australia, Atlanta, Seattle, WA, Arizona, Florida, Indonesia again because there's three people viewing there. Alberta, Canada, Brazil because they're watching Sergio Sete Camara, although not at the moment because he's also retired from the race. India, Wales, I can't pronounce that town in Wales. Hong Kong, USA, Indonesia again because someone else has actually just got up to watch the race. Austria, Adelaide, South Australia used to be a Grand Prix there. It was a very good circuit. Poznan, California, North Carolina, Bulgaria, Germany, Singapore, Greece, Switzerland, USA again. Someone else is watching from the toilet. There's also a viewer in Dallas, Texas, Portland, Oregon, Canada, Seattle, WA again, Finland, and another person from Finland, India, Mexico, Denmark, Oregon, Ohio, USA, Stuttgart, Germany, and breathe.
I wonder if that's Seefeld in Zurich, Switzerland. I know we've got a dedicated fan there. Now, as the cars come across the start-finish line, the safety car is still out, and we have about 29 laps to go. So you see all up on the screen there on the pit boards, and the drivers now just trying to keep temperature in their tyres and their brakes as well to some extent. As these tyres are designed to operate without tyre warmers, so keeping tyre temperature is crucial. But the safety car does not look to be going at what you might say in English as much of a clip. So it's going to be difficult for them to keep those pressures and temps up. We saw the car being cleared away, so it should be the last lap on the safety car.
It should, yeah, hopefully it should be. I mean, is this race control kind of controlling the pace of the car to try and eke as many racing laps out of this as humanly possible? Yeah, okay. We're nearly at the halfway point in this race, Sam. I think it's possible, maybe the right time to have a slight review of this as we see Ryo Hirakawa leading the race in the Toyota. Look how slow he is going.
We've got the safety car doing wave bars now.
Yes, so they're letting the lapped cars through now. Yes, I think they are. They're letting the lapped cars through.
No, they are letting
No.
Yes, they are unlapping. So they are letting the lapped cars through. So we are going to get everybody starting. The restart is going to be a full race order. That's good.
You see on the screen there that Sergio Sete Camara, they finally found a window to get his car off the circuit. I think that was one of the issues. Camara went off at a point in the track where there was very few windows to actually get him off the track. So they're actually only allowing those cars through now that they've actually successfully cleared him off the track, rather than allowing them to unlap themselves and then speed around to the back of the field while the tow truck was still on the circuit.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that's good news for those watching at home, because we are going to get a full field race now. It's not going to be a race in two halves, which I was fearing. We are going to get the full grid competing. But in the pits now,
that's Nakajima.
Yeah, it's Nakajima for the third time. That's not that's not scheduled. We'll keep an eye on that. But don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Also, coming up later tonight, we have esports action, the fourth round of the Indy Pro Series by FSR on Arthur at Round 3 Virginia International Raceway. Next weekend, Saturday, Nürburgring action is back with Round 5 of the NLS. And Bot Chad is asking, Bot Chad, who supplies the tyres for this series? Well, it's written on the rear wing of Nakajima's car there. It's Yokohama.
It's Yokohama's the Advan tyres that they introduced back in 2015. Now, Sam, this has not worked out for Nakajima, because my theory was they were probably trying to pull a fast one in the sense that maybe they could put more brand new tyres on. Bearing in mind, as I said, yesterday was a wet sessions yesterday, so they didn't get to use the dry tyres then. I'm assuming they were trying to get Kaz Nakajima on completely new tyres for the second half of this race, but it's actually backfired on them slightly because the field has caught up with them probably quicker than they anticipated, and Kaz Nakajima is now a lap down again.
Yeah, that's not gone well. Unless he got some pickup or some issue with the tyres. But yeah, that's not gone well for Nakajima and the Ventolin team, Tom's team. But they're going to be focusing now on the man in third position. There he is, Nick Cassidy, the Kiwi driver who is still just about in the championship hunt, but needs some really good results. Sitting in third position for the restart, just ahead of Tomoko Nojiri in that red, black, and white Team Mugen car. And then you've got the KCMG car behind that pairing of Yuji Kunamoto, then Kentaro Yamashita and Tadasuke Makino in the TCS Nakajima Racing. That safety car's really played well for Makino. He's actually gained out of this quite a lot.
Yeah, Makino, of course, started 12th. I think the safety car is beginning to pick up the pace a little bit now, so you're right. I do think he may be coming in soon. Yes, just a heads up of where we were now that we are just over the halfway point. We're actually just on the halfway point. Hirakawa leads in a Toyota-powered, his Toyota-powered car with Yamamoto, second place with Honda. Third place, Cassidy in the Toyota-powered car. Then you got Nojiri Honda, then Kunimoto and Yamashita, both Toyotas. Then Makino seventh in Honda, then Oshima, Oshura and Sakaguchi, all Toyotas. That is interesting. That is important because, as I mentioned earlier on in this race, Toyota powered cars have very much dominated the first two rounds of this championship, with Toyotas locking out the top 4 positions at the opening round at Motegi, and then the top 5 positions at last time out at Okayama. So much more of a fight this time out from the Honda powered cars. Not entirely sure if that is the nature of this circuit or if it's actually, we are getting into that time of the year, Sam. It is mid-October, mid to late October now. The temperatures are dropping. The races are getting cooler. So is this changing the balance of performance, as it were, naturally for the series? Bearing in mind that the final 4 rounds of this race, all happening in November and December, are going to be significantly cooler than what these cars are not used to.
Yeah, that's going to make such a difference to the way the tyres work. Actually, it's not too cold, as you saw at the top of the race. It's not too cold here at Sportsland Sugo, but it is quite a few degrees colder than they're used to. But look, the lights are off on the safety car, and the field's still incredibly strung out, actually. So if Hirakawa decided to make a break for freedom at this point, he'll need to catch up the safety car. But they're all going to need to close up a bit more for this race to get going again. They are strung out halfway around the track at the moment.
Sometimes it's actually difficult to get a really good, powerful start, get away from your rivals at Suzuka because of the nature of that final corner. It is a long, lingering right-hander, as we see it here. And they got going, Sam. I think they put the power down. They are gone. And I think it's Hirakawa who's just tried to shoot away from Yamamoto. Cassidy. I think Yamamoto's been watching Cassidy in his mirrors, but Cassidy's not close enough to make the overtake this time round. But I think Hirakawa is still going to be watching his mirrors as the two behind him battle hard.
Nojiri got that completely wrong in the Team Mugen car. He was nowhere near the back of Cassidy, but Cassidy's all over the back of Yamamoto. This is a clash of the titans in Super Formula. These two have been rivals in Super Formula. They've been rivals in Super GT, and now they're rivals at Sportsland Sugo. Cassidy from New Zealand, Yamamoto, of course, from Japan in the Docomo Team Dandelion car. It's Honda versus Toyota for second position as the Toyota-powered Hirakawa starts to break out a lead. Cassidy needs to get this pass if he wants to win a race this year.
And this is playing right into the hands of Hirakawa at the moment. He's extending his lead somewhat, and he is a guy who already has quite an extensive lead in the championship, Sam. If he wins this race, it'll grow even further as they come round to complete lap 28. Is Cassidy going to make a move this time round? Yamamoto dives to the right to defend. Cassidy stays to the outside and left as a roll hoop bar flashes, and Cassidy goes past, takes second place. He is going to charge after Ryo Hirakawa, Sam. This is going to be absolutely fantastic battle, and you see Cassidy has already claimed a few tenths on the race leader in that short strip on the start-finish straight alone.
Yeah, and that was the overtaking system in full force. You can see on Yamamoto's roll hoop, it's gone red. Yamamoto is running out of boost. Cassidy is still green, still has quite a lot of boost to go, and he is using that now to get up to the back of Ryo Hirakawa. Cassidy is on a very much a charge He's roll hoop still flashing slowly, but he'll be flashing quickly any moment, and he's going to be all over the back of Hirakawa. Hirakawa, he's been leading from the start, has hardly used any overtaking boost, so he'll be able to defend or get Cassidy back if he gets back into the lead. Further down the field, well, the TV director sort of lingers on the countryside. Well, there's a TCS Nakajima car trailing around at the back, but the person who must be really kicking himself is Tomoki Nojiri. Usually Kunamoto might want to kick him as well, if they're so far back from this race lead battle. 4.1 seconds, in fact, back. But look, there goes Cassidy. Look at the gap. So now we're seeing this battle between
That's Oyu
and Kobayashi.
Oh, that's Kobayashi on No, that is Kobayashi on Oyu, and they clipped and Oyu going off the circuit there, and one of the Ingen cars going past as well for good measure. That was a little bit naughty from Kobayashi, but all's fair in love and war, and well, that was very much a war, I think.
Well, with no Jensen Button on track, Kobayashi's got nobody else to bump into. So,
well, that was Sho Suboi who also got past. That was a battle over 13th, 14th, and 15th place. I think Kobayashi is trying to push on now as well. Basically, his strategy and the strategy of many others completely unraveled with that safety car, because they were not able to take advantage of the fresh tyres and clean air that they normally would. Everyone else got a pit stop ahead of them, so now they're actually battling on 13th place, which is their real position. Bearing in mind, Kobayashi pitted from what was 7th place at the time. As we see, Nick Cassidy gets a brilliant run out of the final corner. That's what the final corner does. It gives you a slingshot and allows you to use the overtaking boost system as he goes for the lead. Nick Cassidy takes the lead around the outside of Hirakawa. That is critical, Sam, absolutely critical, as Nick Cassidy into the lead for Valentine Teams. Toms takes Ryo Hirakawa for the lead of this race.
You saw the cars, you saw Hirakawa bottoming out through that final corner, probably due to low tyre pressures. That's what that smoke was. And he is losing time a little bit to Cassidy in the Valentine Team Tom's car. But both Cassidy and Hirakawa have a lot of overtaking boost left. Hirakawa will have more than Cassidy. And as long as Hirakawa can stay ahead of Yamamoto, who is now closing on the back of the white Toyota-powered car from Team Impel, he should be able to come back at Cassidy as the race evolves. For lap 31 of 53, round 3 of the 2020 Super Formula Championship here on the-race.com. Stay tuned, I think there's a lot more to come in this.
And Sam, another reason why that overtake is potentially critical is, of course, we must remember back to qualifying, Hirakawa took second on the grid. He got 2 bonus points for that. If you get a win, you get 20 points in the series. If you finish second, you get 15. If you finish third, you get 11. As we see, Yamamoto, is he going to make a move down the inside? Not quite. Has to pull out the very, very last second, but Naoki Yamamoto really signaling that he's coming through. The point being that Hirakawa, as you see, Yuko Sasahara and Kumu Kobayashi battling hard over 12th place. Kobayashi gets that position as the Japanese ex-F1 driver urges himself on towards the points in this championship. He is 12th at the moment. He needs 2 more positions, but Hirakawa leading this championship by 16 points off the top of my head, if I remember correctly. Cassidy needs to take an absolute chunk of points out of Hirakawa if he's really going to make the most out of this race victory. He needed to get past, especially as Hirakawa did get bonus points from qualifying earlier on today.
Cassidy, well, here we see Kamui Kobayashi. The red mist has really come down on him today. He's absolutely powering around the track, but he's making moves left, right, and centre on everybody and not taking any prisoners, which is very much a Kamui Kobayashi trait. However, he's been flying, and even though that strategy has not gone in his favour, he will be in the points sooner rather than later, as long as he stays, doesn't crunch into the side of somebody, which is really what he wants.
And that is critical. That shows you, what gives you an indication of Kobayashi's mindset. Normally he is a driver. Yes, he does make some overtakes in a race, but he also is a driver who allows strategy to play its part as well. As you see Sasahara back into the pits for another stop, and he's weaving that car slowly. So I wonder if he is. Did he have a clip there when he was getting overtaken? Is it a potential puncture? Not entirely sure, but that is his 3rd round in Super Formula unraveling somewhat. He's changing all 4 tyres.
Yeah, that's not a scheduled stop, and with the way the race is, he's risking losing the lead lap doing that. He wasn't that far up,
but it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense.
5, 6, 7 seconds for a lap time. That is not a planned stop. So here, because you can see him leaving the pits. Here comes the race leader Nick Cassidy. So on those cold tyres, Cassidy I think will soon be on the back of that Red Bull liveried car.
It doesn't make sense from a strategic point of view either, because even on fresh tyres, you can't really go quick enough around here. You're not gaining enough time around here to make that work. If this was a slower circuit with maybe more corners or fewer straights, that'd be different. But the lap here is so quick, you're never going to gain enough time doing an additional stop. For example, as we saw at Motegi, you're not going to make enough time doing an additional stop to actually make that work and actually gain time on those ahead of you. As we see Cassidy with a 2.5-second lead ahead of Hirakawa. The Okayama Motor third, 1.5 seconds behind the second place man. Is this Yamamoto just, holding back slightly, making sure his tires last, and then going for another charge in a few moments' time?
Yeah, I think Cassidy he's just on a chance to make the biggest gap possible, because Hirakawa seems to not have quite the pace that expected, but they are Cassidy is 0.5 of a second a lap faster in terms of his best lap. In terms of his last lap, they're running about the same speed now. So Cassidy's trying to open up that gap, but that gap is sitting about 2.5 seconds. Naoki Yamamoto is sitting about 2 seconds now behind Hirakawa. So they're all just trying to open it up, because dirty air does play a factor. There, you can see the flash of light down the start finish straight, a little bit too far back there for Yuki Sekiguchi trying to get a go on Ishiura in the Project New Team Indycar, run by Tsurumo, who run also the Waycross Team rookie car in Super GT and the Zent car in Super GT. They are just trying to manage their tyres. Dirty air's a factor. If you get too close, following too close the car in front, you're going to destroy your front tyres. So they're just trying to keep their tyres alive, thinking about it to build up towards the end of the race. We have 18 laps to go. With such a short lap, but it's almost just 20 minutes of racing left.
That's kind of what I was thinking earlier on. This is a very, very quick lap. It is, in and around the same length lap as many of the circuits we see on Super Formula, but just this very, very high-speed nature. It's quite like Monza. In F1, all the races generally come to around 190 miles, but Monza is such a fast circuit. The race itself goes by so much quicker than many of the others, purely because you're at top speed for so much longer. Sasahara in again. Problem with that car. Unfortunate, and I wondered maybe if he did get a clip as we see Sekiguchi is under pressure from Fukuzumi, and that is for 10th and 11th place. Fukuzumi slotting into the final point position. Sekiguchi's pace has not really been there, Sam. He was, as I mentioned earlier on, he was sluggish initially on his first stint in Motegi. He was a little bit sluggish in the first stint in this race before the safety car kind of put him in a position where he had to pit, but he's not exactly set the lap times alight in this second half of the race either. So really struggling for pace on these soft tyres for whatever reason, and Kobayashi looking to take 11th place from him very, very swiftly soon.
Yeah, he's not had pace since we went back to green, really, after that long safety car. We've really, the amount of drivers we lost don't seem much, but some of the international viewers, we've lost Sasha Fenestraz early on in the race, which looked like an off-induced engine problem. We've lost, obviously there's the Red Bull car, Sasahara going in the garage. We've lost him. We've lost Sergio Seti Camara with a suspected suspension failure. And it's been a bit of a race of attrition. Well, no one told Kamui Kobayashi, who's having another go, with nearly getting it done into the first corner, but not quite. Yuki Sekiguchi saw that one coming and just didn't leave it quite open enough. But I think Kobayashi won't stay behind him for very long. But he is running out of overtaking boost, and he does need to be a little bit careful, because Toshiki Oyu has been shadowing Kobayashi through the field, and now that shadow seems to be about to overwhelm the TCS Nakajima shadow seems to be about to overwhelm the KTMG Toyota, and behind a pair of them with full overtaking boost, that I believe is Nakajima, but where's Shosuboi in that case? That might be Cassidy coming back to lap them, actually.
Nakajima's a lap down on all of the fields.
Yeah,
when he stopped that time, because the field was coming around, he had to let the entire field pass. What has probably happened is he's actually passed he's probably unlapped 1 or 2 cars, but he's actually generally a lap down in the whole field.
That would explain that. So yeah, so don't worry about the Vantolin Team Tom's car. That's not in this battle, even though it's sort of loitering behind them. But Kobayashi may have pushed too hard too quick, or just losing too much time behind Yuhi Sekiguchi in the NX Team Impul car. That is the same Team Impul car that runs the Calsonic blue car in Super GT. Super GT, of course, screened live and exclusive on this very channel with a very similar sounding commentary lineup as well. If you can do a Cornwall accent.
I can't do a Cornwall accent, but I do have a doll of Rob Barth, which you know frightens him greatly, I'm afraid.
Another car in trouble there is car 12.
That's Suzukoshi, Sam. That's Suzukoshi.
Yeah,
so he was losing laps, I think. So I think he's actually, because he's pulled in behind Sasahara on the line, he lost quite a lot of laps. So I think I wonder if he pulled off during the safety car period, and I must have missed that completely. He was in the lower reaches of the points anyway beforehand. But Suzukoshi, I wonder if actually they fixed the problem. They're going to send him back out. He's 10 laps off the grid, so he's lost quite a lot. We're 3/4 of the way through this race, Sam. Cassidy leads Hirakawa by 2.5 seconds. Yamamoto, meanwhile, has completely fallen off the battle for second place. He is now nearly 4 seconds behind Hirakawa. And so that chart, I initially thought maybe he was dropping back a bit to preserve tyres, but you don't lose 4 seconds when you're trying to preserve tyres. It's not really going to work for you.
He's struggling. We're looking at 11th position from Sekiguchi. That's just looking at the battle backwards from him. He's being hunted by Kamui Kobayashi, who himself is being hunted by Oyo. But just to talk about the front of the field, Nick Cassidy, fastest lap of the race last time past the stripe. So he's flying around and he's going quicker this lap. So Cassidy just really on a mission to open up that gap. 3 seconds first to second at the moment, and then 3 seconds second to third. As you said, Yamamoto 7 positions up from his starting slot, but now fading in the race. Nojiri 3 seconds behind him, but Kobayashi no seconds behind the car in front, and still can't get it done into the first corner. Now keep an eye on Kobayashi's roll hood, which was flashing red, and I think has now been extinguished altogether, which means he's got no more boost, as we see Skudai Suzukoshi rejoin the track for reasons of... No reason for that, is there?
Well, if nothing else, it is actually extra testing time. And for the 12 car, the Drago Racing car, they are a single car entry who have not really done much testing so far this year. They were previously in Super Formula up until 2016, so they have returned this year, but they don't have a second car on field, so they are desperately lacking on data for that car. Their main driver, Tatiana Calderon, who hasn't been around for this round or the last round. She will be back, you think, in Autopolis in a few weeks' time. They are desperately lacking on information, and as we see, this is towards Oshima being overtaken by Ashura. And you know what? You can overtake around the outside, but when it comes to actually breaking for the apex, you do not have much room from the rear tire to the front wing of the car behind you when you do actually solidify that overtaking move. So a brilliant job there by Ashura as he aims to make his way up the field. He got a podium last time out at Okayama. He's not going to be on the podium this time around. He's currently 8th place and shaking after Tadasuke Makino, but it is how many points for the 2-time Super Formula champion. Bearing in mind, Sam, as we've mentioned quite a few times in this race, in all the races so far, it is the best 5 results from 7. That is going to be critical for many of the drivers in this championship, particularly if you're Sasha Fenestras.
Well, even more so if you're Yuri Vips. And some drivers saying they've used up all their bad results so far, and I think that's absolutely true. You know, if you have some bad results, you've got to have a good race after every single one. Well, one man who's having a great race is Nick Cassidy. And if you're enjoying watching Cassidy, you're enjoying watching this, well, quite bonkers race at Sugo, actually. It's been another Sugo classic. There's like 4,500 of you watching, only 1,300 likes, so I guess the rest of you aren't enjoying it. But do hit like, do hit subscribe, because hitting like and subscribe helps us bring you more content, more live racing, and more inside information on all of these series from Japan and from around around the world. You're watching round 3 of the 2020 Super Formula Championship live from Sportsland's Sugo on the-race.com, and that is the battle for 9th position. Oshima tried to defend of Nirei Fukuzumi in the Rookie Team Racing Toyota powered car against the Dandelion Docomo Racing Honda powered car. And it is a race that is going to be resolved, but one of many battles undoubtedly.
Oshima has, of course, scored a point so far this season. He came 10th in the season opener at Motegi, what feels like quite a long time ago. Fukuzumi really looking to gain some additional points here as he comes down to start, finish straight, gets in behind Oshima, but it's not going to be enough yet. Oh, he's going to make a dive down the inside, but thinks better of it. You know, Fukuzumi has already scored a 5th and an 8th so far this season, so 7th in the championship with only 9 points. Considering the championship leader Hirakawa leading the way at the moment with 36 points following his bonus for qualifying early this year. I think Fukuzumi will need a quite a significant result. Fukuzumi, bearing in mind, this is only his 2nd season now in Super Formula, having transferred back to Japan after several years in racing in Europe in the GP3, what was then the GP3 series, and in Formula 2. And you know, he's had a podium. He scored a podium at Suzuka last year, 3rd place, and he's doing reasonably well, but still betting himself into the championship to some degree. He'll be learning an awful lot from his teammate Naoki Yamamoto, who's currently 3rd place and in a little bit of limbo. Actually, it's not Yamamoto on the screen there. He scored his best lap of the race on lap 31, a 1 minute 6.7, but he's almost a second off that pace at the moment. He's just over 4 seconds behind Hirakawa, who in turn is 4 seconds behind race leader Nick Cassidy. But Yamamoto not overly pushing because he's got a 5-second gap to the 4th place man, Tomoki Nojiri.
Yeah, they spread out at the front quite a lot. This is where in Formula 1 we might put up a battle forecast on screen, but looking down the order, the lap times is a little bit of a stalemate at the front. 2 Toyotas in 1st and 2nd, then 2 Hondas, then 2 Toyotas, then a Honda, then 2 more Toyotas, then another Honda. So it's despite having 2 different engines in the back of these cars and no balance of performance between them, it does seem to be a very evenly matched battle on the engine front, as you're seeing demonstrated here with this ongoing battle between the Docomo Team Dandelion Honda-powered Dallara chasing down the Rookie Racing Toyota-powered Dallara of Oshima, still battling over 9th and the minor points.
And also good to note, Sam, as well, Oshima there in 9th place in the Rookie Racing car. This is technically a car run. It's the 3rd car run by the Tsurumo group. Tsurumo, of course, run the 2 Ing cars of Hiroki Ishura and Sho Tsuboi. But I think it's a maximum of 2 cars per team in Super Formula. So this has been run as a single car entry, but operated and machined effectively by the Tsurumo guys. Now, Fukuzumi, as we mentioned earlier on, once he got past Sakaguchi, we felt Sakaguchi was a little bit of a cork in the bottle somewhat. Fukuzumi has actually edged 4 seconds over Sakaguchi in 11th place, and Fukuzumi is fending off Sakaguchi, actually right here, right on screen, fending off Toshiki Oyu, who has in turn passed Kamui Kobayashi.
Yeah,
so
we didn't see that. We didn't get to get a good review of Kobayashi defending against there, but that battle of 3 is catching this battle of 2 for the final points in round 3 in 2020.
And of course, we've got a couple of questions coming in from all your watchers. How much power boost do you get with the overtake button? It is approximately 30 brake horsepower. And Stig's Indian cousin asks, Suzuka Circuit Day, anyone? It's 2 rounds of Suzuka this year, but it's a mega Super Formula weekend over December 5th and December 6th. 2 races, that's rounds 5 and 6. That is a pretty busy December, Sam. 3 rounds over the course of basically 2 weeks. 2 races in Suzuka, and then the championship finale at Fuji on December the 20th. But beforehand, we got Autopolis next month. That is going to be on November the 14th. So watch out for that on the Race YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, join, comment, and make your thoughts known to all of us, and we'll do our best to reply to you. And you know what? Something we have been working quite hard on, quite well on in these first 2 rounds. If you put a question in the comments, we'll try and get back to you after the race as well.
Absolutely. Well, somebody who can't wait till after the race to get this done is Toshiki Oyu, trying to get the move done there on Yuki Sakaguchi. because he needs to get it done, because Kamui Kobayashi, who seems to be taking a breather from his endeavours earlier on, because he's run out of overtaking boost, will be back on the tail of Oyu pretty soon. But let's have a look back at Nick Cassidy, another fastest lap of the race. He's really not hanging around. He's pushed the gap out to 4.7 seconds first to second right now. And with he's lap 47 of 53, Cassidy's looking good. But Oyu is really looking... Oyu is looking very, very racy there on the back of Sekiguchi, but so is Kobayashi on the back of that, and homing in on the pair of them, well, that is still Nakajima, who isn't really in this fight. He's a lap down. So Kobayashi doesn't really need to watch his back, but Oyu certainly does, as does Sekiguchi. But just up the road, that is really concertinaing up into that battle for 9th as well. So we're going to have a bit of a scrap over these last 5 laps, last 5-6 laps to the finish for the final point, and that could be a little bit unpredictable.
Yes, this is championships have in the past been decided in Super Formula by a point, by 2 points. Of course, we all remember in 2017, I think it was, Pierre Gasly lost the championship to Hiroki Ishura by half a point, which actually came about because the final round at Suzuka, I think it was cancelled because of a... I can't remember if it was an earthquake or a hurricane or a storm or something like that. But, you know, this championship is incredibly close. The battles are often very, very tight. Remember last year, of course, we had a 5-way fight for the championship coming into the final round. And it'll be just as tight this year, I think, when you take drop scores into account. So each point counts, Sam. Even if it is a battle over 9th and 10th place, these are the positions that sometimes really matter.
Well, look at the gap there between first and second. That is the effect Cassidy's having. You can see the light flashing slowly on the roll hoop of the guy in second position. Hirakawa is using his overtaking boost allowance to try to get up to the back of Cassidy, but I think he's left it a little bit too late. 4.7 seconds. 4.736, as you can see on the screen, is the gap between first and second. There we're having a look at the Team Mugen car of Tomoki Nojiri in 7th position. He's done his best lap of the race so far, a couple of laps ago, but he's really putting the power down, trying to get away more from Yuji Kunamoto in 5th, more than get up onto the back of Naoki Yamamoto, who's 7.5 seconds up the road. That's why, look, you can see at the top of your screen, there is the Team Rookie car chasing him down. That's Oshima, who's a little bit further back. So I think that's not a big worry for him.
Indeed. As you see, going around the circuit there. I mean, this has been a safety car aside. This is just an incredibly fast track. Kunamoto coming around the final corner. This has really been a challenge for a lot of drivers because there's not really much of a let up here, Sam. They don't really get many opportunities for a break. So this has actually been a physically quite demanding circuit. They're probably happy that the race is happening in October as opposed to, say, August or July, which, you know, given the incredibly unpredictable nature of 2020, was always a possibility. So in that sense, it is a physically demanding race, but probably less so because the temperatures are around 15 degrees Celsius today. So they have had a little bit of a give in terms of physical output, but still an incredibly tough race, especially the G-forces on these cars in this event.
I think the drivers are just happy to be racing at Sportsland Sugo at all this year. Super GT isn't coming to Sportsland Sugo this season, unfortunately. Decided against that and decided to come out. It will be back next year. We're waiting to find out the full calendar, but I suspect it'll be back in its normal slot. But Japan at this time of year is an absolutely wonderful place to be. The trees start to change colour. They haven't quite done that at Sportsland Sugo yet, but they will do in a couple of weeks' time. You see the leaves changing, it's beautiful, and Halloween's coming up, and the Japanese go quite big on Halloween. And normally around this time of year, I'm actually sitting in Tokyo somewhere, sipping a spiced coffee in a branch of Tully's or Excelsior. Nonetheless, we are unable to travel to Japan at the moment, for obvious reasons. But Kenta Yamashita, he has left Japan, and he is running 6th position. and he needs to keep a gentle look behind him, as Tadasuke Makino isn't all that far behind and is travelling slightly quicker than Yamashita with just 2 laps to go. I don't think it's going to make a difference, but there is that TCS Nakajima car just homing in on the back of him. Just a couple of quick laps and then he will be done. But one man who is pumping in the laps at the moment and doesn't really need to look too far back is Nick Cassidy, still leading this race up from Ryo Hirakawa and Naoki Yamamoto. That battle, though, between 9th, 10th and 11th is still raging, and Yuhi Sekiguchi needs to hold on for a little bit longer against Oyu and Kobayashi, who are both charging. Nirei Fukuzumi is also still pushing on Oshima for 9th. So even though we are on the penultimate lap, there is still a lot more racing to come here on the race. Round 2 of the 2020 Super Formula Championship. Don't forget to hit like, don't forget to hit subscribe, because there is your race leader. He's already liked and subscribed because you saw him at the top of the show.
As a note there, you mentioned Kenta Yamashita. Better race weekend this weekend for Kondo Racing. Of course, we lost Sasha Fenestras at the beginning of the race, but neither, of course, Kenta Yamashita. He wasn't in Okayama last time out. He was replaced by Sakaguchi, who crashed on the warm-up lap. So both cars were effectively, both Kondo cars in that race were out by the first corner. So, you know, Kenta Yamashita running 6th at the moment, a better weekend for them, but they're still hoping for a little bit more, Sam. I think it's fair to say. Indications, so you know, we're on the final lap of this race. Nick Cassidy leading, of course, as you can see, 4 seconds ahead of Hirakawa. Staying like this, Hirakawa with 51 points will continue to lead the championship, but this will propel Cassidy into 2nd in the standings, Sam, while the gap is still going to be 15 points between the two.
Yeah, but it's a crucial event for Cassidy. Don't forget that there's still quite a few races to come, and the drop scores will then come into effect. So it becomes a little bit difficult to work out the championship points at this point in the season, because some of those scores might be wiped out altogether, the weak ones, where you're only comparing the 5 best. So it should be an important race, and Cassidy could be much closer to this championship lead than we first realised. But he comes across the line for the final time, weaves across the line. Nick Cassidy of New Zealand takes his first victory of the 2020 season, and that one's going to mean a lot. Ryo Hirakawa comes home 2nd. He's having a super strong season. Naoki Yamamoto there coming into view in 3rd. Next car we should see is Tomoki Nojiri in the Honda-powered Team Mugen car, but the TV director has decided to look at the pit board instead. There is, well, that was the Team Mugen car. There's KCMG car, and here come the cars in the order that we expect. You can see it on your screen. Now, who will be 9th? Who will be at 11th, 12th, 13th? That was the big battle we were watching earlier. They crossed the line in the expected order. Oshima, I think, is going to hold on to that position across the line. Yeah, he has. And actually, that battle between Oyu and Kobayashi and Sakaguchi never really came to anything in the end, did it?
Kobayashi actually fell down during the order. It looks like Kobayashi lost a lot in those last few laps, because he's dropped about, he dropped about 6 seconds behind Sakaguchi and Oyu, and it was overtaken by Sho Suboi. Nick Cassidy, as you see on screen there, you know, congratulated there by Hirakawa. That's only Cassidy's, believe it or not, Sam, that's Cassidy's 3rd race win in Super Formula.
Only his 3rd race win, but he's already got a championship.
He has a championship. He didn't win a race in 2017. He won a race each in 2018 and 2019, which brought him a championship last time out. Hirakawa 2nd place. So as it stands at the moment, Ryo Hirakawa with that championship lead, 51 points. He is ahead of Nick Cassidy, who goes up to 2nd in the championship with 36. P3 in the championship and P4 together on 21 points is Hiroki Ishira and Kenta Yamashita. 5th in the championship, Sho Suboi. In his 13th place finish today, he drops to 15th in the championship with 20 points. Then you have Naoki Yamamoto with his podium today, jumps up to 6th in the championship with 16. Then you have Fenestras falls 7th with 15 points. Then Tomoki Nojiri with his score today, 8th in the championship with 13. Then Yuji Kunimoto, 9th in the championship with 10. And rounding out the top 10 in the championship is Nirei Fukuzumi, also 10 points. As the cars, the top top three come around. Most of them are going to go into Parc Ferme. The top three should line up on the actual starting grid. I wonder if Cassidy knows that or remembers that. Yes, do. And Hirakawa also almost forgot, as Yamamoto also being directed onto the grid there. So the top three in this race line up on the...
That Marshall's not having a good time of it right now, is he? Oh, and they're all ignoring him. Oh, he's got that wrong. That's all gone wrong there, Leigh. That has gone badly wrong.
Well, that's because the top three in the race are actually supposed to line up on the grid to do their post-race interviews and whatnot. Cassidy doesn't really seem to... Oh, actually, no. They've lined up in the pit lane. This is new.
Well, the Marshal was just having a bad time of it there. So, Nick Cassidy, we will stay tuned. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. We will be hearing from Nick Cassidy very shortly. He's going to do a celebration, and he's going to look for a bottle of champagne. We'll bring you the podium ceremonies. He is very happy about this, and he's really excited. He can't even get out of the car. He's so excited.
I know, it's his first win at Sugo. Of course, his previous best before this was second place in 2018, Sam. So he's notched up another victory, his third victory in Super Formula. I can't remember off the top of my head if he's been a race winner in Super GT here, but that is a very big win for Cassidy and really propels him up into the championship fight. There's still a cap to Hirakawa, but as you said, with dropped scores, everything is in play. Hirakawa, I wonder, he led for most of that race and has come home second. He led for a lot of the race at the second round at Okayama and ended up fourth. I wonder if maybe he'll be a little bit miffed, and even though he's got a podium, questioning slightly how he's come to lose 2 races after leading and qualifying so well in both.
Yeah, it's going to be... Well, I think there's a lot. It's a good day for the Red Bull drivers. Cassidy, well, he's looking happy. We stay tuned because the red carpet is being rolled out. Now, there's usually a bit of a moment while they go and, they're going to have to weigh themselves. And Cassidy's talking excitedly, like a racing driver always does after the race. Again, congratulations. He's a popular driver in Japan, is Cassidy. And he's being mucked about with by Hirakawa, making him think he's heavier than he is.
And of course, he's got, Cassidy's got other signed duties for next year already, heading to Formula E with the E-Vision Virgin team. Will this be his last year in Super Formula and Super GT, Sam? We haven't had an absolute confirm on that yet. Everything is still to play for.
Yeah, I suspect we won't see Cassidy exclusively doing Formula E. I think we'll see his talent somewhere else as well. But I think one of the reasons he's gone back to Formula E is to try and get himself back on the Formula 1 radar, because clearly he deserves to be in Grand Prix motor racing and hasn't had the opportunity as yet. So he's being summoned and being pushed around by, well, not quite pushed around, but being sort of shepherded around the pit lane to the TV crews, and he's looking like he's going to be talking to us in a minute. So there'll be a microphone put in his face momentarily, and we will hear what he's got to say for himself in New Zealandish. So is he in position now? Where's the microphone? Over there, says the man. Are they going straight to the podium? No, you've got the little... These aren't podium robots. These are just boxes.
I really miss the robots.
Yeah, they only made that one appearance, and I've wondered where they are. I mean, because obviously I'm working at the Biggin Hill Media and Technology Centre with Formula 1, and I was hoping the podium robots would make an appearance there so I could play with them. But they haven't. They are not there. So we haven't seen the podium robots for a while.
You say the Biggin Hill Technology Centre. Isn't that just a shed?
It's a very high-tech shed.
Oh, okay.
Air shed, sir. They're called hangars in aviation terms.
Uh-huh.
Well, there's the microphone. But is Cassidy in the right place? Here come the microphones. And there's Sonia Ito, ready to do the translation to Japanese for the Japanese viewers. But we will be hearing from Nick Cassidy. We'll have that faded up so you can hear what he's got to say.
ニック、すごいレースでしたけど、どういう展開で
We've got a question in Japanese first, I think.
How was it when you approached Hirakawa? What was your strategy?
I must say big thank you to the team. Tom's Racing, TCD, fantastic. Arigatou gozaimasu. Car was really good this weekend. I qualified 4th, which you know, we were in the hunt for pole, only a 10th off.
Not really
it's a lot
getting
better
it,
than
Sam.
where we have been.
Yeah,
really struggled,
you can't. They
the
can.
last 1 year for qualifying speed, and this weekend it come together. And I think the race shows what we can do when we start at the front. I had a much better feeling on the second set of tires, and after the restart, I could really attack. So I think that was the key.
いや本当にね、大変チームに感謝したいと思います。やはりチームや TCD の皆さんのおかげだと思います。本当車は最高だったんですよね。
Who's commentated with me for the Suzuka 10 hours once? That was quite fun. And Cassidy putting silly faces. We haven't seen the mandatory Cassidy selfie yet, but the next question will come to Nick momentarily. We'll see that microphone reappear from Sonia, who's just translating everything he just said into Japanese. Kiwi, which is of course English.
そこからはもうガンガンいけてですね、優勝することができてとても嬉しく思っております。
Just wait for him to have the next question. It's taken a while.
印象はですね、レースにとても強い印象なんですけど。
And they're asking the question in Japanese, and that is getting translated back to English, so Cassidy can answer it in English.
Yeah, I have a similar confidence. Qualifying has been our weakness for the last 1 year, but in the race we are one of the fastest cars. So yeah, focus is on qualifying. This weekend's obviously a lot better, and we need to continue that.
So as Nick said at the beginning of the program, actually, the qualifying has always been an issue for him this year. But now he's got the nice Tom's branded face mask. He's got qualifying sorted, and now he's disappearing off into the distance. Is that an indication for the rest of the year?
It's definitely. I think that was
might get a third question. Leigh, the microphone's still in play.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's a bit of a difficult situation for me. So I'm taking life 1 weekend at a time, and I'm going to enjoy this moment.
So
he's desperately avoiding answering questions about the future there, Cassidy. He avoided answering that question to us. He was pretty open with us, I have to say, earlier on, that he got his race prediction a little bit wrong for those who were watching at the start. There's still time to hit like and subscribe and go back and watch that. That race will be available on demand now. So Nick just says thank you and pumps his fists. Leigh, you were saying?
Gosh, it's gone straight out of my head. Nick Cassidy, every right to be absolutely delighted with that. That is a critical victory for him, as we see the results on screen there. Cassidy winning just under 4 seconds from Hirakawa. Yamamoto third, completed the podium. Then Najiri fourth, Kunimoto fifth, Yamashita sixth, Makino seventh, Ishura eighth, Oshima ninth, Fukuzumi 10th, and rounding up the points positions there. I mean, that was an assured drive, Sam. That was a very assured drive. You see the rest of the finishers. And, of course, Cassidy's teammate Kazuki Nakajima had an awful day for him. We think broke his front wing in the first corner when he went into the side of Sasha Fenestraz. Attempted an additional pit stop during the race, and of course that cost him again when he got held up at the pit lane as the field snaked past and ended up losing a lap as a result. So difficult weekend again for Nakajima, but this Cassidy I think really needed this weekend. He wanted that win. He has been a consistent driver for his whole career. He's never been necessarily a driver who goes out and wins race after race after race. If we see the highlights from the event here, that was, of course, Kamara from pole position. Fenestraz got a bad start, but allowed Hirakawa through into second place. You see there, that is Nakajima hitting the side of Fenestraz. That would Fenestraz retire almost immediately. Nakajima went around with some difficulties. And then down the order, you had Yamamoto, who made a fantastic start, overtaking Cassidy for what was then third position. Yamamoto, of course, starting outside of the top 10. There was also action from Kamui Kobayashi as he overtook car after car after car. He started 18th on the grid. That was him taking Kamui Kobayashi there. Didn't quite see that on screen at the time. That is the Kamui Kobayashi with one of the Ing cars, and Kunimoto as well. Then Kamara had an issue. He went into the pits, had a little bit of a difficulty, a problem on the right rear, went out, and the car went straight on into to the barrier only a few laps later. Then the safety car came out as Kamara was being extracted. The field came into the pits. The top few stopped, but it gave Cassidy impetus and the opportunity to go for the lead. He first took Yamamoto for second place and then chased after Hirakawa. And here it was, the vital move. Cassidy getting behind Hirakawa for the race lead, using his overtaking boost, getting a draft, going around the outside of Hirakawa to take the lead and eventually take the race win. Sam, second in the championship now, his third Super Formula win, his first win of the season. That is a great day if you Nick Cassidy indeed. Coming home ahead of Ryo Hirakawa and then third place, Naoki Yamamoto.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really important victory for him as well. Straight on to social media, as ever, which is the Nick Cassidy way. That will already be on his Instagram account, well worth following. But also worth following the race channels on social media, the-race.com, and at We Are The Race on various Insta tweets and books of faces and TikToks and Weebos and I don't know what other things there are.
Weebos, isn't that like a breakfast cereal?
I mean, it's Chinese social media, isn't it? Well, there's your drive standards. Ryo Hirakawa, Nick Cassidy, Kenta Yamashita, Ishihara and Sho Tsuboi. You've already covered that. This podium procedure is new because it seems to be entirely under two gazebos. But here's the flag distribution point. We've never actually seen that before. Now, is this the pre-podium?
Interesting. No.
Oh, yeah, that is the pre-podium. We're getting to see the drivers go onto the podium. There is Nick Cassidy onto the winner's rostrum. Single flag there for Toyota Gazoo Racing. Hirakawa comes to join him with a single flag as well, but doesn't really wave it. Bit of a fist bump for Cass. And they're also single flagging Docomo Honda Racing Team Dandelion.
And of course, Sam, we remember, of course, if you're viewers of the race, all these guys will be competing in Super GT next weekend from, I can't wait, is it Motegi or Fuji next week?
Now the anthem of New Zealand.
That is live on the race as well, so tune in for that as we get the New Zealand national anthem for race winner Nick Cassidy.
So next stop for all three of these drivers on the podium, 300 kilometers of Suzuka here on the race.
And Sam, just
GP. And don't forget, also coming up later today, we've got live esports action, the fourth round of the Indy Pro Series by FSR on R Factor, round BIR. Also next weekend on Saturday, Nürburgring, the big one, and round 6 of the NLS.
Quick question came up in the chat. No victory burnout for the race winners. Not really. It's unfortunately it's a situation where the engines and everything else needs to be made to last for the whole year. We may see a victory burnout at the finale. That's at Fuji on December 20th, but mid-season generally frowned upon because you need to really make these components last. As we see, Nick Cassidy has a very impressive trophy. I love the Sugo trophy.
Just looking at the trophy there, you've got a couple of birds for handles, which I think is quite nice. But what I didn't like there on the base, didn't have a sponsor logo on the base, and you could see that just big ugly screw holding the trophy bit to the base bit, and that wasn't as nice as we've seen at some Sugo trophies before. But the trophy bit of the trophy is lovely. But here is the scratch card. Now they each get a scratch card, 1, 2, and 3, and well, yes, 30 kilos, 15 kilos, 10 kilos. Is that success ballast? Is that rice? 30. Nick's won 30 kilos of something.
Wasn't it rice, Sam? We haven't seen this before, wasn't it? It was rice.
I think it's a 30-kilo bag of rice, and yeah, and well, he gets to take that home. And that's why he's rubbing his belly. So, 30 kilos of rice.
I'm not. I think he's probably thinking carbs are going to have to work harder during the week to get rid of that.
We'll just go off cycling with Jan Mardenborough again around Disney World. I'm not joking. That's how Nick Cassidy and Jan Mardenborough live together in Tokyo, and they go cycling out together. And Jan Mardenborough has adopted one of Nick Cassidy's cycling shirts, which has Team New Zealand on it. And I sort of questioned him about this. Oh, well, New Zealand's sort of the Wales of the Southern Hemisphere. I guess there's a lot of sheep.
Just, I suppose, the other thing to remember, Nick Cassidy, of course, is a Red Bull affiliated athlete. He's not actually part of the Red Bull Motorsport team as such, but actually he's just an affiliated athlete, unlike, say, Sergio Sette Camara, who is part of the Red Bull F1 race team. So, I don't know whether that really leads to opportunities or if that is simply just a kind of, a commercial deal like Red Bull have with many kind of extreme sports people in various different, free energy drinks and whatnot. And
Nick actually has a Red Bull. He actually has a Red Bull fridge in his living room.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's actually quite funny. He actually was part of the Red Bull Junior team several years ago when in Formula 3, when he was racing for both Carlin and Euro International. And I just remember that when he was a teammate with Tom Blomqvist. But yes, a Red Bull affiliated athlete, well-respected driver. And, you mentioned in the interview pre-race, I think, very much driver who should be in F1. I think he has more than enough skill, more than enough speed, more than enough talent. And it's just, I think this is a guy who should be, he's forgotten his trophy. This is a guy who really should be on the top levels of motorsport internationally.
Absolutely, and he's quite fortunate to have not had to open the bottle of champagne on the podium, because as we've seen with Nick Cassidy in the past, that has been an issue for him. Well, there is Cassidy. He's given his bottle away, so that was quick. And now he's running off to the gazebo again. So we've got gazebo cam here. Now the gazebo, so he should be going from here to the press conference, but let's just stick with where he's going to see what these drivers think. So we don't normally get this. This is a new camera angle here for us on the -race.com. Waves, that's Naoko Yamamoto, but waving goodbye to you, the viewers at home. But we're going to stay on air for a little bit as a man in a hoodie with carrier bags follows him.
And for those of you watching the race stream, if you have any questions, shoot them across now and we'll get them answered before we go off air.
Well, we'll try to. Well, I don't know how. The fans, it's great to see the spectators, here, they're now leaving, but that's the next race, though, is at Autopolis on November the 15th, qualifying and the race. The race will be here on the race, so hit like and subscribe, and we'll bring you that live and in full, of course. But that's obviously, as we said, there's more action coming up on the channel, so if you don't want to miss a thing, because there's lots of action, hit like, hit subscribe, and we will bring you all sorts of action as we look across the mountains, just north of Sendai on the coast of Japan.
And of course, don't forget, if you've enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe and join Sam as we get the final shots from Sportsland Sugo.
That's right, there was a nose change, there was some overtaking, there was a suspension failure and a crash, there was a Nissan, there was a driver going home in a Honda. There were some battles, there was a man with earphones, there was a sunset. And then after that, there was another sunset and a victory for a Kiwi. Great win for Nick Cassidy in round 3 of the 2020 Super Formula Championship here from Sportsland Sugo. Thanks for joining us. My name has been Sam Collins and I've been joined by Leo Gorman. Join us next week for Nürburgring, for Super GT from Suzuka, and join us for the next round of Super Formula on November the 15th. Hit like, hit subscribe, and stay tuned. Don't forget to follow us. It's been great having you here.